Chapter 31-37. Fengjiu's eyes turned cold, and the knife in her hand, which she had originally intended to use to dig out the elixir, directly shot towards the snake. The sharp chi blade was accompanied by the hissing sound of the snake's tongue. In the next moment, the flying beast's eyes narrowed slightly. It saw that the third-order divine beast black gold snake was nailed to the stone wall. In the midst of its miserable screams, the snake's tail curled up slightly and then weakly drooped down. It was nailed to the mountain wall, halfway up the mountain, not moving at all. This made it more and more afraid of the human standing on its back, and it didn't dare to have the slightest thought of resisting. Even a third-level divine beast venomous snake was killed by her in one move. If a flying beast that wasn't even a divine beast really wanted to bite back like that venomous snake, wouldn't it die even more miserably? Fengjiu coldly glanced at the dead black gold snake that was nailed to the 7th inch of its body. She originally didn't want to kill it, but she intended to let it go, but it wanted to kill her. Since that was the case, it couldn't be blamed for killing it. She took out another knife, carefully dug out the 1,000-year black spirit tendon, and transplanted it into her space. Finally, she pulled out the knife that nailed the black gold snake and threw the third-order divine beast black gold snake to the flying beast. "I'll give it to you." Hearing this, the flying beast's eyes were filled with excitement and surprise. It flapped its wings and nodded slightly, letting out a cry. After thanking Fengjiu, it grabbed the snake with its claws and swallowed the snake's crystal chip. "Send me over there." Fengjiu pointed to the location where Lin, Changjin, and the others were. The flying beast cried out and was about to send her away when it saw a few more flying beasts in the sky. Moreover, there were people standing on the backs of those flying beasts. "Boy, you're quite capable. You actually dug out the 1,000-year black spirit tendon before us," a man said, staring at Fengjiu and saying, "If you want to live, obediently hand over the 1,000-year black spirit tendon." Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. Her clear eyes swept over the 4 or 5 people and said, "Your strength is at the celestial sage level. It seems that you're not disciples of the celestial sect. Good that you know. We won't be merciful like the disciples of the 4 sects. Quickly hand it over, and we can still spare your life." One of them shouted in a deep voice. The pressure of a celestial sage expert also swept towards Fengjiu. Who would have thought that his pressure would have no effect on Fengjiu? Seeing that the young man's face was still as calm as before, without the slightest bit of discomfort under the pressure, they couldn't help but frown as they sized him up. "Kid, who are you? You're not a disciple of the 4 sects, are you? You snuck in." Fengjiu chuckled. "It's good that you know. I won't be as merciful as the disciples of the 4 sections." Her clear eyes turned, carrying an inexplicable smile. "The last person who dared to steal my things and have ideas about me has already reported to the King of Hell. If you don't have eyes, provoking me is your misfortune." Hearing these arrogant and murderous words, the few people's hearts tightened. They mobilized their spiritual chi and surrounded Fengjiu. At the same time, they shouted, "Kill this kid." As soon as their voices fell, several figures flew out from the flying beasts. Several sharp swords suffused with cold light shot towards Fengjiu with murderous intent. Chapter 31-38. A cold green light was refracted, and a sharp sword chi collided with the other party's sword chi. There was a loud bang, and several chi waves spread out in all directions. The powerful sword chi shook the people away, and they retreated a few steps. After stabilizing their bodies, their eyes narrowed. "Brat, who are you? How could an ordinary kid withstand the pressure and sword chi of the few of them? Could it be that this brat's strength was stronger than theirs?" However, when their gazes landed on the emerald edge sword in the brat's hand, someone exclaimed, "The ancient mystical sword Emerald Edge. How did you get the ancient mystical sword Emerald Edge? There has clearly been no news of this ancient mystical sword for many years. So how did it end up in your hands? What's the point of talking so much with him? Let's kill this brat and take his sword, and it'll be ours." Another man said as he stared viciously at Fengjiu. Hearing this, Feng smiled. There's only one sword. There are only 4 or 5 of you. How are you going to split it? She smiled lightly and waved the emerald edge sword in her hand. Let me help you. As soon as she finished speaking, she rushed out like a ghost and attacked the other party. Her speed was extremely fast, and her oppressive aura was also released as she fought. Almost at the instant she rushed out, the other party was stunned by her oppressive aura. With a twist of the green sword in her hand, a biting cold sword chi flew out. With just one sword strike, she killed the people around her. This. A few screams rang out at the same time. The bodies of the few people stiffened, and their eyes were filled with disbelief and fear. A few figures fell straight down the cliff. When their mounts saw this scene, they cried out in alarm and flapped their wings to escape. After all, they were not contracted beasts of the few people. Seeing that the few people had died, they naturally left quickly. Catch them. As Feng spoke, she turned around and hovered in the air. She watched as the flying beast caught the corpses and returned to her side. Only then did she walk over and collect their space rings and chinquin pouches. Afterwards, she had the flying beast throw the corpses down the cliff. She put away the azure-edged sword and returned. Lin Qingjin and the others were sitting in the forest. Not long after, they saw Feng return. They quickly stood up and asked, "How was it? Did you pick the 1,000-year black spear attendants?" Feng smiled. "Got it." Hearing this, they looked at each other and smiled. "That's good. I've already picked the herbs, and I won't be staying here for long. Do you want to leave with me?" She asked, looking at the 3 of them. It's not very safe here. We'll follow you," the 3 of them said. She nodded and said, "All right, crush the teleportation token and leave now. You should also return to the sect to recuperate from your injuries." As she spoke, she looked at the mother beast. "You've really decided to leave with me?" The mother beast looked at Tun Yun and nodded heavily. Feng smiled and glanced at the proud Tun Yun. With a wave of her sleeve, she put the 2 little beasts into the space. Lin Qingjin and the others took out the jade tokens at their waists. Just as they were about to crush them, a loud rumbling sound came from the sky. They couldn't help but pause and look up. Chapter 31-39. Dust and smoke billowed in the distance. The wind and dust pushed and pushed against each other, blurring the vision of the dense forest. They could only vaguely see that under the pouring dust and smoke, the trees below were also buried by the sand and rocks. Falling rocks rolled down from above and smashed into the ground. The rolling vibration lasted for about half an incense stick's worth of time until everything around them became quiet. The few of them held their breaths, their hearts in their mouths. Mu Ling's expression was solemn as he said, "That kind of mountain toppled over and buried all the trees below. I wonder if there was anyone there?" Pei Zishuan looked at Feng and said, "Let's go over and take a look. I wonder if there's a buried disciple there." Lin Qingjin also looked at Feng hoping to go over and take a look. It was rare to see such a landslide. If there was a disciple buried below, he was afraid that. Hearing this, Feng glanced at them and said, "Let's go. If you want to go out, it won't make much of a difference." As she spoke, she rode her sword and went over with them. At the same time, the surrounding people who heard the commotion could not help but rush over. Among them were a few supremacies from the immortal sects. When Feng and the rest arrived, they saw that there were already a few supremacies from the immortal sects there. Seeing the 4 of them, the supremacies were very surprised. 2 of them recognized Mu Ling and the rest and said, "You guys are actually here? It's so dangerous here. Why don't you guys leave?" Supremacies. Mu Ling and the rest recognized the supremacies from the immortal sects and hurriedly bowed. "We came to see if we need help. Here, quickly come over. There's someone buried here." A supremacies from the Qingsheng immortal sect said as they moved the rocks that were pressing down on the disciple below. Everyone heard the sound and quickly rushed over to help. The person was not buried very deeply. A few rocks propped up one of his arms, allowing them to quickly find the disciple. Everyone worked together to move the rocks away and rescue the disciple. They saw that his head was bleeding and his leg was fractured. His entire body was covered in dust and sand. He was so dirty that they could not see his face clearly. It's a disciple from the Blue Star Immortal Sect. One of the venerables said as he recognized which sect the disciple belonged to from his dirty robes. Thinking that it wasn't a disciple of his immortal sect, he couldn't help but secretly let out a sigh of relief. It really is a disciple of the Blue Star Immortal Sect. Since there is one person here, there must be others. Hurry up and find him. The supremacy of the Blue Star Immortal Sect said as he asked Lin Qingjin and the others to help him to the side. First, treat the wound on his head and stop the bleeding. Don't let the blood keep flowing. As the Venerable One spoke, he handed the disciple over to Lin Qingjin and the others. Then, he went to the front and used his divine sense to check if there were any other disciples buried underground. Here, there's another one here. His spiritual sense probed the life force under the soil, and he couldn't help but shout in surprise. Who is the earth attribute cultivator? Come and help me. Let me do it. I'm of the earth element. A venerable from the Qingsheng Immortal School said. He walked forward and used his control over the soil to quickly move the soil away. Chapter 3140. Fengjiu himself was of the five elements attribute. Now that he saw this, he told Lin Qingjin and the others to help move the soil and save the people. Another one came out. This is a disciple of the Qingsheng Immortal Sect. What? Why is a disciple of our sect here? A venerable exclaimed. He originally thought that since the people buried here were disciples of the cerulean planet, the people buried here should also be disciples of the cerulean planet. Who would have thought that a disciple of the Qingsheng Immortal Sect would be buried here? His leg. The venerable of the Qingsheng Immortal Sect quickly stepped forward. When he saw that the Qingsheng disciple's leg was smashed, he couldn't help but gasp. Fengjiu frowned and glanced at him. He didn't say anything and just helped to save those who could be saved. As time passed, more and more people rushed over. As more people joined in, the rescue became more and more successful. However, when the ferocious beast's roar spread all around, the people who were in the middle of rescuing people stiffened and turned around abruptly. They didn't know when it started, but there was a circle of fierce beasts surrounding them. Those fierce beasts bared their teeth and let out low growls. Their fierce and bloodthirsty eyes stared at the people. At this time, in addition to some of the injured disciples who were rescued and moved to the open space, there were also disciples from the various sects who heard the commotion. At this time, everyone was here, including some venerables. Disciples, get ready for battle. The venerables of several immortal sects immediately raised their voices and shouted. Their spiritual power auras spread out and clearly entered everyone's ears. The disciples also quickly prepared for battle. However, even with their masters here, even though there were many of them, they couldn't help but feel a little afraid at this time. Those fierce beasts were not low ranks. Each of them had a strong physique and a bloodthirsty appearance that made them shudder. If they fought, they really couldn't guarantee that they could survive among these fierce beasts. Seeing that everyone around them was alert and their bodies were tense, Mu Ling, Pei Zixuan, and Lin Qingjin couldn't help but look at Fengjiu. They knew that if they wanted to resolve the situation before them, there was actually a simpler way. Moreover, that method could also reduce the casualties of the disciples of the four sections. If they were to fight, almost half of the people here would die. Fengjiu glanced at the surrounding ferocious beasts. Because of the pouring of the mountain mud, the disciples of the four sects rushed here. Naturally, the ferocious beasts also came here. Among them, there were several mythological beasts. Seeing the venerables and disciples looking as if they were about to face a great enemy, Mu Ling and the other two's gazes also fell on her. She sighed silently. With a wave of her sleeve, Tunyin quietly squatted beside her. Go! Fengjiu waved his sleeves and let it walk around. When Lin Qingjin, Pei Zixuan, and Mu Ling saw the little beast come out, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Their worried hearts also relaxed. That should be the one with the sacred beast, right? If it released its aura, those ferocious beasts should all leave. Therefore, when the venerables and disciples got ready for battle and held their breaths to observe the movements of those ferocious beasts, they saw a round little beast appear out of nowhere and walk around those ferocious beasts as if there was no one around. Roar. Chapter 31:41. The supremacies from the celestial sects were all dumbfounded by this scene. They found it hard to believe. The chubby little beast raised its head and puffed out its chest in an arrogant manner. It swung its tail and walked back. Some of the surrounding ferocious beasts let out a low roar and left. Some hesitated for a moment and wandered around before leaving. The supremacies and dozens of disciples were all dumbfounded. Someone asked, "Who does that little beast belong to?" Someone else asked, "What level is that little beast?" Someone else asked, "Why did all the ferocious beasts retreat? Were they scared off by that little beast?" However, no one could get an answer, even though they were all confused. That was because that little beast had gone to some unknown place with a leap after circling around. Ahem! One of the supremacies coughed softly and said to the other supremacies, "Let's bring the seriously injured disciples back to their respective sects first. It's not suitable to stay here for long. Plus, there are some disciples here and some who have already left. Perhaps there aren't many disciples left here." Hearing this, the supremacies nodded. Then, they gathered the disciples of their respective sects and crushed their teleportation jade tokens to leave. As they left one after another, the number of people here gradually decreased. Fengjiu scanned the surroundings. His divine senses detected that there was no longer any life in the buried area. In other words, even if there were still people buried here, they would already be dead once they were rescued. "You guys should leave quickly too. Your masters are very worried about you. They've also come in to look for you, but we don't know where they are," one of the supremacies said to Mu Ling and the others. His gaze paused on the inconspicuous young man behind them. He felt that this person was somewhat unfamiliar. "Supremacies, we'll take our leave first then," Mu Ling and the others said and bowed to them with cupped hands. Thus, the remaining Cerulean Planet disciples were teleported out together with the injured ones. Mu Ling and the others also crushed their teleportation jade tokens and left after everyone else left. Fengjiu held the teleportation jade token in his hand and looked around. Seeing that the two supremacies from Cerulean Planet had no intention of leaving, he asked, "Are the two supremacies not leaving?" The two supremacies were talking and thinking about where to look to see if they had missed any disciples when they heard a voice behind them. They turned around and saw that it was this young man. They said, "We still need to look for a while more. You can leave first. The restriction here has loosened, and the divine beasts have come out from the depths. The danger in this secret realm has increased by more than one level. Even if the two venerables encountered a powerful divine beast, it would be difficult for them to escape unscathed," Fengjiu said, and then paused to look at the two supremacies. "Supremacies, don't stay here too, and Don. And don't go. Supremacies. We know. You can go now." The two of them laughed and let Fengjiu leave first. "Take care," Fengjiu said with cupped hands. Just as he was about to crush the teleportation jade token, he saw a loud bang in the sky some distance away. A distress signal sounded. Chapter 31:42. Because everyone else had left, and they were the only ones left, the two venerables immediately reacted and quickly rushed in that direction. Fengjiu stood on the spot and looked at the sky. There was another loud sound and two consecutive calls for help. It looked like the situation was critical. She lowered her head and looked at the teleportation jade token in her hand. Finally, she sighed helplessly and rushed in that direction. She was extremely fast, and her body movements were exquisite. Her white figure shuttled through the forest like a ray of light. It was so fast that no one could see her figure. Because of this, the two venerables did not see that the figure that flashed by was Fengjiu, who had been standing beside them and talking to them. They also did not expect that the young man who had said that he wanted to leave would actually give up on leaving and rush to the place where the call for help had been sent. Fengjiu felt that she was still too soft-hearted and too fond of meddling in other people's business. It would have been one thing if she had not obtained 1,000-year black spiritual tendons, but now that she had obtained it, she was delayed because of the calls for help. Although she had not been in this mystic realm for very long, she would still need some time to refine the pills. If she could return earlier, it would also be beneficial for the recovery of Xianyuan Moses' tendons and veins. However, she could not bear to leave him in the lurch. In the end, she was still too soft-hearted. Her speed was comparable to the speed of light, and she left the two venerables far behind her. When she arrived at the place where the call for help had been sent, she saw two level 9 divine beasts attacking CK and Mu-Xin. Mu-Xin was sent flying by one of the level 9 divine beasts. His entire body flew out and crashed heavily into a large tree before bouncing off and falling to the ground. The force was so great that even the tree was broken. The thick and solid tree roots made a cracking sound as they fell to one side. Mu-Xin spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His chest was crushed by the fallen tree. His face was deathly pale. He wanted to push the tree away, but found that he could not move the tree at all due to his severe internal injuries. Especially at this moment, the level 9 divine beast that had sent him flying opened its mouth wide and revealed its sharp teeth as it tried to bite his neck. At that moment, his heart jumped as the despair of death enveloped his entire being. He felt that he was so close to death. Mu-Xin. CK suddenly turned around and saw this scene and cried out in heart-wrenching alarm. He wanted to rush forward to save him, but the level 9 divine beast that he had been fighting had clawed at his arm. Several deep claw marks that were so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood dripping down from his arm was a ghastly sight. His body was already covered in wounds. Mu-Xin, get up, get up. He was a junior brother from the same immortal sect and had the same master. When he saw that Mu-Xin was on the brink of death, he almost went crazy. He did not care about the injuries on his body and rushed forward. However, the figure that had rushed forward was blocked by the level 9 divine beast. The divine beast roared, and a powerful pressure that contained a fierce aura came crashing towards him. He could only endure the pain of his injuries and quickly dodge. However, this dodge increased the distance between him and Mu-Xin. Chapter 3143. 2 9th-level divine beasts were able to make you so miserable. A clear and unhurried voice rang out, causing the hearts of the two despairing people to tremble. Honored Master. They looked towards the person who had arrived in surprise and excitement. However, just as Mu-Xin looked towards the source of the voice, the tree that was pressing against her chest flew out and violently collided with the 9th-level divine beast that was pouncing towards her. Bang! Roar! The heavy blow from the tree struck the 9th-level divine beast with the force of a thunderbolt. A powerful hidden force passed through the tree and struck the 9th-level divine beast. The heavy impact caused the 9th-level divine beast to cry out in pain. At the same time, its body that had pounced forward was sent flying and landed heavily several meters away. Seeing this scene, CK and Mu-Xin were stunned. They looked at her excitedly. Honored Master. They never thought that their honored master would appear to save them in their moment of despair. Even more unexpected was that their honored master, who was also at the heavenly god level, could send a 9th-level divine beast flying so easily. Fengjiu glanced at them and saw that they were both heavily injured. She said, CK, help Mu-Xin to the side. Her gaze turned and landed on the 2 9th-level divine beasts. These 2 beasts have injured you. How about I let them be your mounts? With that clear and cold voice, she took a deep breath and charged towards one of the 9th-level divine beasts. When the two heard this, they could not help but be stunned. Let these 2 divine beasts be their mounts. Those were 9th-level divine beasts. They were only 1 level away from becoming powerful divine beasts. How could they be willing to be their mounts? However, in the next moment, they saw a scene that they would never forget. The 2 bloodthirsty and savage 9th-level divine beasts actually lay in front of their honored master and did not dare to move. No matter how she kicked and kicked them, they did not dare to retaliate. They just lay on the ground and curled up their claws tightly hugging their heads as they howled in grief. Roar! Roar! The two mythological beasts howled, but their voices sounded like two puppies. They no longer had their previous awe-inspiring and imposing manner. Even if they used their claws to protect their heads, they still looked bruised and swollen. After Fengjiu taught the two divine beasts a lesson, he stopped and asked coldly, "Do you want to die? Or do you want to live?" "Of course I want to live." When the two level 9 divine beasts saw that she had stopped fighting, they hurriedly spoke up. They felt very sullen in their hearts. They had been the overlords of this mystic realm for many years, and were only one step away from becoming sacred beasts. But today, they had met such a lunatic, and the pressure on her body was actually that of an ancient sacred beast, causing them to involuntarily prostrate in front of her, not daring to fight back. However, when they recalled what she had said earlier, that she wanted them to be the mounts of those two humans, they said reluctantly, "But we won't be the mounts of those two humans." Those two humans were so weak that they didn't want to be their mounts. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. "Is that so? But if you can leave this place alive, then the only way out is to be their mounts. If you're not willing, then I don't mind killing you right here and now." As she spoke, a flame condensed in her hand. The flame danced jubilantly in her palm, causing the two rank 9 divine beasts to tremble. Chapter 3144. They couldn't help but tremble when they saw the flames. The ancient divine beast fire phoenix. So the coercion on her body was the coercion of the ancient divine beast fire phoenix. No wonder she was so powerful and terrifying. "We're willing. Don't kill us. We're willing." The two level 9 divine beasts hurriedly said. A wise man submits to circumstances. Furthermore, this person was so powerful and had the ancient divine beast fire phoenix. Moreover, these two were her disciples, so following her was the right thing to do. Immediately, the two level 9 divine beasts quickly stepped forward and crouched down in front of CK and Mu Xian. Seeing this, Fengjiu glanced at the two divine beasts. At this moment, he saw that the two supremacies had also arrived. Before they even got close, the two supremacies had already cried out in alarm. "Heavens! How did the two of you get injured so badly?" They quickly stepped forward and looked at the two injured people. Then they saw the two level 9 divine beasts crouching in front of them. Their expressions changed, and they quickly retreated. Level 9 divine beasts. The two divine beasts glanced at the two supremacies and shifted their gazes to the two injured people. "We're willing to establish a life contract with you. We'll protect you in life and death, and we'll never betray you." When the two level 9 divine beasts spoke, CK and Mu Xian were stunned and couldn't react in time. Establishing a life contract with them? Wouldn't that mean that they'd really become their contracted beasts? These two level 9 divine beasts were unimaginably powerful. Were they really going to establish a life contract with them? "Take them." Fengjiu glanced at the two supremacies. These two level 9 divine beasts have pretty good fighting abilities. CK and Mu Xian laughed bitterly. How could they not know that these two level 9 divine beasts had pretty good fighting abilities? However, it was precisely because of the strength of these two level 9 divine beasts that they were a little worried about whether they would cause any trouble after taking them in. With some hesitation, they looked at Fengjiu and said, "Master, these two level 9 divine beasts are very powerful. It is precisely because they are very powerful that they are qualified to be your mounts. If it were not for their strength, they would not be qualified to be your mounts." As Fengjiu spoke, he glanced sideways at the two rank 9 divine beasts. "Forget about the life contract, but you still want to establish a life contract after injuring you to this extent? Let's establish a master-servant contract," she said in a low voice, her cold gaze sweeping over the two mythological beasts who froze after hearing her words. When the two rank 9 divine beasts heard this, they didn't dare to utter a single word, because they clearly saw the killing intent that flashed through her eyes. They reckoned that if they really protested, this powerful human would really kill them. At this moment, The two venerable ones who had rushed over and retreated after seeing the two divine beasts were dumbfounded. "Moss Master?" Their astonished and shocked gazes landed on the white-clothed youth at the side. Originally, they wanted to ask why this young man didn't leave and instead arrived here before them. But they didn't expect to hear such shocking words. "Master? CK and Mu Xian's master. Weren't they Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mo's?" Could it be that this young man in front of them? For a moment, the two of them stared at each other, speechless for a long time. Chapter 3145. Fengjiu glanced at the two of them and said, "What are you still standing there for? Contract with these two divine beasts and quickly leave this place to recuperate." "Yes." CK and Mu Xian suppressed the excitement in their hearts. Although they were both seriously injured, they were still full of anticipation and excitement. Ninth-level divine beasts. They had never thought that they would be able to form a master-servant contract with a level 9 divine beast. Such a divine beast was too strong. It was only a step away from becoming a sacred beast. Even the patriarch of their sect did not have such a strong, contracted beast. Moreover, with such a contracted beast, their strength, the families behind them, and their status would all rise again. Master had really given them a big gift. The two of them set up a master-servant contract with the two Class 9 divine beasts, and the two sovereigns who were standing there in a daze finally couldn't take it anymore. They looked at each other and came to Fengjiu's side, smiling in a flattering manner. "Sovereign, do you still lack disciples? The two of us are also lacking a master. Why don't you take us in? We will definitely be more respectful to you than senior brothers CK and Mu Xian." Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and glanced at the two of them. "I don't lack disciples. Venerable ones, please don't joke around." This thought the two of them still wanted to say something, but they heard movement from CK and Mu Xian's side. They immediately looked over and saw the two of them exhale softly. It seemed that their injuries had healed a little after contracting with the two 9th-level divine beasts. CK and Mu Xian supported each other and stood up. They looked at Fengjiu and knelt down to her. "Thank you for saving us, Master. Thank you for gifting us these divine beasts." She had saved their lives and given them these divine beasts. They would never forget her kindness. The two of them glanced at the two venerables. Although they had just contracted with the divine beasts, they had heard their conversation. They did not expect them to be so thick-skinned as to recommend themselves as their master's disciples. Did they really think that their master would accept just anyone? It had to be said that they were dissatisfied in their hearts. They felt like they had been poached. Noticing CK and Mu Xian's glances, the two venerables coughed awkwardly and said, "Well, since there's nothing else, you can leave first. Let's go see if there are any other disciples nearby." "No need." CK looked at them and said, "Earlier, we found many disciples and asked them to leave. There shouldn't be any disciples of the Blue Star Immortal Sect here. Moreover, there are powerful, ferocious beasts everywhere. It's not suitable to stay here for long. Two supremacies, please leave with us." Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other, then looked at Fengjiu. Only then did they nod their heads. All right. After they went out, they counted the disciples to see if everyone was present. Therefore, after they cupped their hands in salute, they crushed their teleportation jade tokens and left this place. Seeing that the two of them had left, CK and Mu Xian looked at Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu crushed his teleportation jade token as well. With a flash of light, he disappeared from this mystic realm. Seeing this, CK and Mu Xian put away their two contracted beasts, then quickly crushed their teleportation jade tokens and left. Chapter 3146. The three people's hearts sank when they heard the same words. Lin Chengjin frowned. She didn't come out? They had found the elixir. Why hadn't she come out? Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan looked at each other and said, "Maybe she was delayed by something inside. With her cultivation, we don't have to worry about her." That was true, but the people who were supposed to come out together did not come out. Even though they knew that she was very powerful, they couldn't help but worry. What was she doing inside? What was she delayed by? However, just as they were thinking, they heard a cry of surprise. Supremacy CK. Supremacy Mu Xin. Why are you so badly injured? Hearing the cry of the supremacy not far away, they were stunned and quickly turned to look. They saw that the two people who appeared in the transportation array not far away were their masters. At this moment, their bodies were covered in blood and wounds, and they were trembling with fear. "Masters!" the three of them exclaimed and quickly ran over. As they rushed forward, they saw the young man in white, Fengjiu, who had been pushed to the side. Seeing that she had come out safely, their worried hearts finally relaxed. It was good that she was fine. It was good that she had come out. This way, they would have something to say to their masters. As their masters were seriously injured, they couldn't care less about Fengjiu and went forward to help support them. "Masters, how did you get so badly injured? Quick, help them back." Even though they were also injured, seeing their masters in such a state, they couldn't care less about their injuries and quickly helped their masters back to the peak. Seeing this, Fengjiu also went forward to help them back. In the corner, the two supremacies who knew the situation couldn't help but sigh as they watched them leave. What a pity! What a pity! Why couldn't they have such a person as their master? They also wanted such a master. For the first time, they actually envied others for having such a master. For the first time, they regretted that they didn't go up to the competition stage. Fengjiu, who had followed them back to the peak, told them to go to the main peak of CK first. She would treat their injuries. Thus, Pei Zixuan, Mu Ling, and Lin Qingjin sent the two of them to the courtyard of the main peak. Su Kaiji and the others, who had heard the news of their return, also came here. However, Mu Ling and the others were guarding the courtyard, so they were not allowed to enter. Seeing the injuries on their bodies, Fei Kaiji couldn't help but ask, "How did you guys get injured like this?" The three of them looked at their own bodies and smiled. "It's just some minor injuries." They had been training with Fengjiu for a few days, and it was already considered good that they had made it out alive. Who knew what they had experienced in those few days? "Senior Marshal Brothers, go back and wash up first. Bandage your wounds. We'll just stand guard here." Gretchen stepped forward and said, "No need." The three of them shook their heads at the same time. "We'll go back later. Our masters are seriously injured. If we don't take a look at them, we won't feel at ease." They didn't say anything else when they saw this, and they just waited there until the door to the courtyard was opened, and Fengjiu walked out. "How are our masters?" They surrounded her and asked. Fengjiu glanced at them and said, "Their lives are not in danger. Don't worry. Let them recuperate in this courtyard for now. Don't go back to the cave abode first." Chapter 31:47. When they saw her walking out, Mu Ling and the others couldn't help but ask, "Are you leaving?" Fengjiu stopped in her tracks and glanced back at them. "I'm going to my abode to refine pills. I'll leave after I'm done." As she spoke, she strode out. "Let's go in and see our masters." As they spoke, they went in to see their masters. After they saw their masters, only two of them stayed behind to take care of them while the other disciples left first. As they emerged from the secret realm, the Exalted One started to do a head count to see if anyone was missing. The four sects had fallen into chaos because of the loosening of the restrictions in the secret realm. They were busy reorganizing the restrictions in the secret realm and investigating the loosening of the restrictions. On the other side, after Fengjiu returned to the abode that CK and Mu Xian had prepared for her, and Moze, she started to prepare the herbs she needed to refine pills. After many years of collection and cultivation, she had all the spirit energy in her space. Now, she only had to gather the spirit herbs she needed to refine pills. After she set up a barrier and a formation outside the abode, she flashed into the space. As soon as she entered the space, Senior White pulled a long face and looked at her with hidden bitterness. When she saw this, she couldn't help but laugh and ask, "What's wrong?" "Master, you're biased." Senior White spoke faintly and seemed listless. He glanced at Tun Yun, and then his resentful gaze flashed past the mother beast before he said to Fengjiu, "You found a partner for Tun Yun, but you didn't find one for me. I'm sad." It lay on the ground listlessly, as if it didn't even have the strength to move. When she heard this, Fengjiu chuckled. So that's what you're talking about. She glanced at the mother beast that lay by Tun Yun's side and smiled at Senior White. I thought you didn't want to hang yourself on a tree. But since you have such thoughts, I'll find one for you if I have the chance in the future. However, at that time, even if you meet one that you like in the future, you can only look on helplessly. When Senior White heard this, he couldn't help but think for a moment, then forget it. Who knew if it would find another mother beast beautiful in the future after its master found it a partner? Fengjiu smiled when he heard that. He crouched down in front of Tun Yun and patted its head gently. He said softly, "Let me tell you, I didn't help Tun Yun get this companion. It was Tun Yun who attracted it. If you can be like Tun Yun, you might attract more than one mother beast in the future. Don't you think so?" Senior White's eyes lit up, and he instantly recovered his vigor. He stood up from the ground, swung his tail, and raised his head. That's right. I, Senior White, am handsome and extraordinary. I'm one of a kind in the world. How could an ordinary beast compare to my charm and vigor? When Tun Yun heard this and saw Lao Bai's arrogant look, he could not help but curl his lips. Seeing this, the mother beast leaned forward and whispered, "It's not as mighty as you, nor is it as handsome as you." When Tun Yun heard this, he smacked his lips and glanced at the mother beast. He was actually unable to say a word. When Fengjiu heard this, she also chuckled. She glanced at the mother beast and continued, "All right, I still have important matters to attend to. You guys can stay here by yourselves." Chapter 3148. Fengjiu was refining pills in the space, while Xinyuan Mose was waiting for her return in Four Corner City. On the other side, in the main peak of the Carefree sect, in the bamboo forest, in the bamboo house, Wanyin Qianhua was lying on the bed with a pale face. Her breathing was steady, but she had not woken up. In the bamboo house, two female disciples were standing guard. When they saw the white figure walking in from outside, the two female disciples hurriedly stepped forward and bowed, saying softly, "Disciples, greet the sect master." The man had one hand in front of his abdomen and the other behind his back. He was wearing a white robe, and his face was as handsome as an immortal's. However, his aura was as cold as ice. Even though he had a godlike appearance, the two female disciples lowered their heads in awe, not daring to look at him. As he walked in, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. He did not speak, but waved his hand, and the two female disciples left. He walked forward. His pace was neither fast nor slow, and was very calm. He came to the bedside and looked at the woman lying on the bed. After a long time, he sat down by the bed and reached out his hand to feel her pulse. "Why don't you go back?" A clear voice sounded. It was different from the low and magnetic voice of an ordinary man. It was a unique, clear voice, as if there were no emotions, no ups and downs. However, when he suddenly said these words, it sounded very strange. The bamboo house was very quiet, as if the voice just now was just an illusion. Hearing no response, the carefree sword master, Jun Jueshang, coldly turned his head and looked at the soft bed in the bamboo house. He frowned and said, "Didn't you hear me talking to you?" Wanyin Xianhua's soul, who was lying on the soft bed, was startled. She looked at the man in white who was coldly staring at her. No, staring at her soul. She was slightly surprised and asked, "You can see me?" In fact, she had just woken up today, but she did not expect her soul to leave her body when she woke up. Moreover, she could not return to her body. Her body had not recovered from the serious injuries. Although her soul had left her body, she was still breathing. She now felt that she had become light as a feather, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Therefore, she was lying on the soft bed, depressed. Who would have thought that Sword Master Xiaoyao could see her? One had to know that the two female disciples who served here had been here for the entire morning and had not seen her lying here. It was all thanks to the two female disciples. Although she was still unconscious, her soul was able to listen to the idle chatter of the two female disciples in the morning. Therefore, she knew that this was the Carefree sect and that she was saved by this man, the Carefree Sword Master. Her body could not return her body, and her soul power was weak. She did not dare to go out for fear that she would be blown away by the wind. Therefore, she could only lie here. Seeing that the carefree sword master was coldly staring at her, she could not help but turn over and lie on her side. She supported her head with one hand and played with her hair with the other. Her beautiful face revealed a seductive smile. Carefree sword master, it's not that I don't want to go back. It's that I can't go back. Even if she was a soul, she was only wearing her undergarments. At this moment, as she lay down on her side, the front of her clothes was slightly open, revealing a hint of spring. Chapter 31:49. However, the godlike man's expression was the same as before. He didn't even blink, as if he couldn't see the alluring spring scenery. He calmly looked at her for a while, then retracted his gaze and looked at the woman lying on the bed. Two identical faces. One was a human, and the other was a soul, but they were split from the same person. But why couldn't her soul return her body? So, he reached out his hand and checked her pulse carefully. At this time, Wanyin Qianhua, who found it interesting, moved her eyes slightly. Her body floated, and she lightly floated to Xiaoyao Jun's side and sat down. Her body seemed to be boneless as she stretched out her hand and placed it on his shoulder. Her entire body softly leaned on him. I can actually touch you? She thought that she would pass through him, but she didn't expect to touch him. This made her feel a little strange. She didn't have a physical body now, only a soul. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be able to touch anyone, but she didn't expect to touch him. This person, what's so special about him? She couldn't help but turn her head slightly to size him up. However, she was half leaning on Jun Jushang's body. She was gently pushed away by him. Her entire body flew up and landed on the soft couch. Jun Jushang's unique and cold voice was heard before she could open her mouth. A restless ghost. Wanyin Qianhua heard this and laughed softly. Who said I'm a ghost? I'm just a soul. As she said this, she glanced at him and asked, Xiaoyao Jun, why can't I return to my body? You're from the Wanyin clan? He stood up and turned around. He walked to the soft bed with his hands behind his back and stopped in front of Wanyin Qianhua. Under the situation where she didn't introduce herself, he actually saw through her with a glance. Wanyin Qianhua's eyes flashed, and she smiled charmingly. Xiaoyao Jun is really smart. You actually guessed it right. As she said this, she stood up from the soft bed and stood in front of him with a lazy and weak look, but she still bowed to him solemnly. Wanyin Qianhua thanks Xiaoyao Jun for saving my life. She knew that if he didn't save her, she probably wouldn't be alive now. Well, although he seemed to be half dead now, there was nothing he could do about it. Jun Jushang looked at her. His eyes were calm and emotionless. His expression was cold and indifferent. It was unknown what he was thinking about. After a long while, he turned around and walked out without saying a word. Seeing this, Wanyin Qianhua hurriedly followed. Her light body swayed and arrived beside him. Because she was worried that she would be blown away by the wind due to her unstable soul power, she reached out and pulled on his sleeve. Jun Jushang, who was about to leave, paused. He turned his head and glanced at the transparent hand on his sleeve. Then, he slowly looked up. His gaze fell on Wanyin Qianhua's face. Let go. Her voice was flat and emotionless. I'm bored staying here, so I'll follow you outside to take a look. If I don't pull on your sleeve, I'm afraid I'll be blown away by the wind due to my unstable soul power. As she spoke, her beautiful eyes looked at him with a smile, as if she didn't see his cold face. She smiled and said, Don't worry, others can't see me. However, Jun Jushang didn't give her a chance to pull on his sleeve. He waved his sleeve and sent Wanyin Qianhua back to the bamboo house. Then he walked away. Chapter 31:50. Her soul power was unstable, so she gathered her thoughts and sat cross-legged on the soft couch to cultivate. She faintly felt that her soul couldn't return to her body after being seriously injured. Perhaps it had something to do with her cultivation method, or perhaps it was because her soul was unstable, so she couldn't return to her body. If she wanted to return to her body and wake up, she could only cultivate and stabilize her soul. She had just closed her eyes to cultivate when she was stunned for a moment. She opened her eyes and muttered, "I forgot to tell him just now. Tell him to send a message to her master that she's fine." After thinking about it, she shook her head. "Forget it. Let's stabilize my soul first." She then closed her eyes and continued to cultivate. The next day, after a day and night of cultivation, Wanyin Qianhua felt that her soul was gradually stabilizing. It wouldn't be blown away by a gust of wind. She then walked out of her bamboo house and into the bamboo forest. Because her soul had left her body, she was currently barefoot and wearing an inner garment with her black hair draped over her shoulders. However, her appearance was outstanding and her actions revealed a seductive elegance. Therefore, her appearance with her black hair draped over her shoulders and her bare feet in an inner garment was pleasing to the eye. In fact, there was even a trace of seductive aura that could hook one's soul. She felt the fresh air in the bamboo forest and the sunlight above her head. She squinted her eyes. Fortunately, she wasn't a ghost. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to withstand the sunlight. Although her soul had left her body wasn't far from it. Furthermore, she was a member of the Wanyin clan and had been in contact with ghosts for a long time. Even if she was a soul, it was different from the souls of ordinary ghosts. She tiptoed and wandered around the bamboo forest. After familiarizing herself with the place, she floated out of the bamboo forest. She wandered around the free and unfettered sect, listening to the conversations of the disciples and watching them cultivate. Finally, she came to a place where she felt that the spiritual aura was extremely abundant. She then found a place to cultivate. Once she started cultivating, she forgot about the time. She didn't go back even when the sky darkened. Jun Jushang walked into the bamboo house in his white clothes. He swept his gaze around, but didn't see Wanyin Qianhua's soul. So he frowned. He walked to the couch and sat down cross-legged. He closed his eyes and rested, waiting for Wanyin Qianhua to return. He waited for an entire night, but she still hadn't returned. The next morning, Wanyin Qianhua returned to the bamboo house in high spirits. He saw Jun Jushang sitting by the bed as soon as he entered. He had placed something on the bedside. "What are you doing?" She floated in, her charming eyes looking at him with surprise. Jun Jushang glanced at her indifferently and said, "Come here. I will help you return your soul to your body." Hearing this, Wanyin Qianhua floated over. "You have an idea? Lie down," Jun Jushang said calmly. Hearing this, Wanyin Qianhua covered her mouth and chuckled. "Free and unfettered lord, telling a girl to lie down like this. Isn't it not very good?" However, as soon as she finished speaking, she saw him reach out with his hand. Her entire soul flew up and lay down on her body. Yet a slender white finger suddenly pressed against her chest. A warm breath was transmitted into her body through his palm. She could clearly feel it. Chapter 31:51. She glared at him with her beautiful eyes, but who would have thought that Jun Jushang would remain expressionless? His eyes were calm and his breath was cold. It was as if he was touching the floor when he touched her soft chest, making her angry. She felt her soul and body gradually returning to one. She opened her eyes and looked at the man sitting by the bed. "Xiao Yao Jun, is it soft?" Jun Jushang's calm gaze fell on her face. He saw that her face was filled with a charming smile, but her eyes were almost spitting fire. His gaze moved down and fell on the place where his hand was touching, the towering and soft place. His eyes flashed and his cold voice faintly sounded. "If your heart is not right, your thoughts will be evil. This Jun cultivates the emotionless Sword Dao. My heart has no 7 emotions and 6 desires. Everything is an illusion." What he meant was that his heart was righteous, and he had no evil thoughts. In addition, he cultivated the emotionless Sword Dao and had no emotions or desires in his heart. Therefore, even if he placed his hand on her chest, it would be like an illusion to him. It was nothing, there was nothing. Hearing this, Wanyin Qianhua almost couldn't suppress the anger in her eyes. Did that mean that she had been taken advantage of and treated as if she was invisible? Because of her anger, her chest rose and fell violently. The hand on her chest also rose and fell with her heavy breathing, but it didn't move away. Looking at the serious appearance of the person in front of her and staring at the hand on her chest, she wanted to get up, but found that she couldn't. She took a deep breath and asked, "Why can't I get up?" This June used the soul-suppressing stone to suppress your soul. Before your soul and body are completely stabilized, the soul-suppressing stone can't be moved and you can't get up. While speaking, he turned his hand, and after a breath entered her body, he withdrew his hand and looked at her without changing his expression. "You can just lie here. This June will come over in the evening to remove the soul-suppressing stone for you." With that, he stood up, flicked his sleeves, and turned to leave, leaving Wanyin Xianhua lying on the bed, unable to move. She could only stare blankly. Although she was angry, it was undeniable that her soul and body were in a state. Since she couldn't get up, then she would just sleep. There was still a long way to go. When she recovered, she would deal with him. Everything was an illusion? What a good everything is an illusion. She wanted to see if it was really like what he said. In the evening, Wanyin Xianhua, who was sleeping soundly, felt that someone had come in. Her vigilance made her instantly open her eyes. She saw that Jun Jushang was standing in front of the bed, taking back the soul-suppressing stone. Just as he put away the soul-suppressing stone, she leaped to her feet. She felt as though she had recovered. That feeling of solidity made her feel at ease. "Let's leave tomorrow since you've recovered," Jun Jushang said. He didn't even look at Wanyin Xianhua. Then, he turned around and walked outside. Seeing this, Wanyin Xianhua only smiled and didn't say anything. She just quietly watched him leave. After he left, she got out of bed and stretched her body. She took out a red robe from her space and put it on. Then, she took out a hairpin and simply coiled up her hair. After looking her up and down, she revealed a satisfied smile. Chapter 3152. Hearing their anxious and worried voices, she couldn't help but purse her lips into a smile. Her heart felt warm. After replying to each of them and telling them that she was safe, she looked at the sky outside. Seeing that it was pitch black, she walked out. On the other side of the bamboo forest, there was another bamboo house. Not far behind the bamboo house, there was a hot spring. She walked there and planned to take a bath. However, when she got closer, she saw that there was a light in the bamboo house. When she floated here that day, there was no one here. However, according to the disciples, this bamboo house was Jun Wu Jushang's residence. She pushed the door open and entered. She looked around and didn't see anyone, so she turned around and walked towards the hot spring. However, as soon as she got close to the hot spring, she became happy. A teasing smile appeared on her charming and seductive face. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this Xiao Yao Jun?" She covered her mouth and smiled. Step by step, she walked toward the hot spring. Looking at the man sitting in the hot spring, her eyes were full of ridicule. Jun Jushang originally had his eyes closed. When he heard her voice, he slightly frowned and opened his eyes. He coldly looked at her. "What are you doing here? Isn't it obvious? I'm also here to take a bath." As she spoke, she squatted down beside the hot spring and looked at the clothed man in the hot spring. "But Xiao Yao Jun, why aren't you taking off your clothes?" Jun Jushang closed his eyes and lightly said, "Go back to your bamboo house and ask someone to send water over." "Ha ha." She smiled and played with the water. Her eyes had an inexplicable light. "But I prefer to take a bath here. Since Xiao Yao Jun cultivates the emotionless sword Dao, he doesn't have the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Everything is just an illusion. Why don't I come down and accompany Xiao Yao Jun?" As she spoke, she slowly stood up. Her fingers brushed against her belt. She gently pulled it and released it. She took off her red outer clothes and casually put it aside. Then, she continued to take off her inner clothes. Hearing the sound of clothes being taken off, Jun Jushang's eyebrows wrinkled tightly, as if they could squeeze 2 flies to death. He opened his eyes to take a look, only to see the woman sitting on a rock beside the hot spring. She had taken off all her clothes except for a red doo-doo and a pair of extremely short underwear. Her white, jade-like skin glowed under the dim light of the night. She placed her hands on both sides of her body and leaned back. Her slender and smooth legs were stretched out in the hot spring water as she frolicked. Her ink-black hair was draped over her shoulders, and her face was bewitching. She was like a fairy under the night sky, so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Xiao Yao Jun, am I beautiful? Wanyan Xinhua seemed to be doing it on purpose. She used the tip of her foot to kick the water towards Jun Jushang, who was leaning against the wall. Her charming laughter was as moving as a silver bell. You are a woman. An indifferent and cold voice rang out. That simple sentence, as well as the calm expression on his face and the frown on his brows, all showed that he did not approve of her, a woman, doing such a thing. So Xiao Yao Jun knows that I am a woman? Wanyan Xinhua's face was full of surprise. I thought Xiao Yao Jun thought that I was a man. Hearing this, Jun Jushang did not say anything. He only looked at her quietly. Even in the face of such a stunning beauty, he did not have any thoughts that he should not have, until he saw the woman sliding into the hot spring and bathing in the same pool as him. His gaze slightly moved. Chapter 31:53. Hearing this, Wanyan Xinhua was shocked. What? Xiao Yao Jun didn't want to take responsibility for me? As she spoke, she suddenly covered her face and wept softly. You've touched me and looked at me, and now you're saying such things? You want me to marry someone? Who do you want me to marry? Seeing this woman's face change, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of person she was. A moment ago, she was seductive and charming, but the next moment, she covered her face and wept. Her snow-white shoulders trembled slightly as she wept, making it hard to see what kind of person she was. In the next moment, he got up from the hot spring and was about to leave. However, when he stood up, the woman who was covering her face and weeping suddenly threw herself at him and hugged his leg. Xiao Yao Jun, you have to take responsibility for me. Hearing the woman's voice, when the woman's soft body pressed against his leg, he almost didn't think about it and flicked his sleeve to push her away. With Wanyan Xinhua's strength, how could she withstand his strength? At that moment, she cried out in surprise and flew out, falling into the hot spring. After struggling for a while, she sank. Jun Jushang was about to leave, but he saw that there was no movement in the hot spring. He turned around and saw that the woman was lying motionless in the water, as if she had fainted. Seeing this, he walked into the hot spring again and pulled her out of the water. However, when he pulled her out, the woman who was originally motionless reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck. Like an octopus, she clung to him tightly without caring about her image. I knew that Xiao Yao Jun wouldn't want me to be drowned to death. Wanyan Xinhua's voice carried a hint of laughter with a hint of pride. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. Just as he was about to throw her onto the bed, she wrapped her long legs around his waist. She looked at him face to face, taking in all of his suppressed anger in her eyes. Oh, Xiao Yao Jun, are you angry? Wanyan Xinhua cried out in surprise, as if she had discovered a new continent. Compared to his suppressed anger, her eyes were full of smiles, and her face was full of joy. Jun Jushang tried to throw her down, but who knew that she would hug him tighter and tighter. Her whole body was tightly pressed against him, and her two legs were tightly wrapped around his waist. This made Jun Jushang, who had never been so close to a woman, blue veins appear on his forehead, and his body became tense because of her friction. Let go. The voice came out of his mouth, and he stared coldly at the woman. He couldn't understand. Why was this woman not afraid of him? How dare she be so impudent? Nah, Wanyan Xinhua. She looked at the angry man. She felt very accomplished. She felt that she had provoked the anger to provoke the anger to... Who was to two? Especially, this was an old antique. Let go. Not. Let. There was a strong contrast between their anger and their charming smiles. This scene looked very comical, but it was also very pleasing to the eye. After all, the two of them were extremely beautiful. Moreover, they were in the hot spring. Whether it was Jun Jushang or Wanyan Qianhua, their clothes were wet and clinging tightly to their bodies. Moreover, they were in such an intimate position. It was naturally very pleasing to the eye. Sectmaster. A man came to the front of the bamboo house to look for Jun Jushang, but after seeing that there was no one and hearing the sound from the hot spring behind, he walked towards the hot spring. Sect. Chapter 31:54. The man who had just circled to the back of the bamboo house only felt the cold and suppressed anger in the voice suddenly shout, and a powerful force swept him away. He couldn't react in time and fell to the ground. His heart was filled with fear, and he scrambled away. He didn't know what had happened. He didn't even see the figure of the person in the hot spring before he was shouted out by that powerful aura. He had followed the Sectmaster for many years, but this was the first time he had seen him so angry. Wanyan Qianhua, who had caused all this, was slightly startled. She blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at Jun Jushang, who was finally not expressionless anymore. She felt strange in her heart. Why is he so angry? Even if that person broke in, she should be the one who was anxious. Jun Jushang stared at the woman hanging on his body. His tense face darkened. How long do you plan to hang on me? Don't you know what you look like now? His cold voice shouted. He looked at the woman in front of him who was hanging on his body like an octopus. Her red undergarment couldn't cover her body. Her two jade arms were tightly wrapped around his body. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. This woman, does she have any sense of shame? What do I look like now? Wanyan Qianhua asked with a smile. She looked at him and said, Xiao Yao Jun, what do you want? You haven't told me how you want to take responsibility. Come down and talk. He tried to pull down the woman who was hanging on his body, but the touch was slippery. He couldn't help but let go of his hand. Seeing his reaction, Wanyan Qianhua looked at him playfully and asked with a smile, Is it slippery? Hearing this, Jun Jushang's face darkened. He didn't know what to say to this woman. This woman's way of thinking was different from normal people. Xiao Yao Jun, since you saved me, why don't we do this? I'll give my body to you. How about it? She looked at him with her beautiful eyes and suggested. Jun Jushang was too lazy to talk to her. He couldn't pull her down, so he stepped out of the hot spring and walked towards the bamboo house step by step. However, with such a woman hanging on his body, it was strange no matter how one looked at it. In particular, the man who had been yelled at to get lost was watching from afar in the bamboo forest. However, the night was pitch black and the light was dim, so he could not see clearly what was going on. All he knew was that there seemed to be a disheveled woman hanging on their ordermaster's body. No, I must be wrong. He rubbed his eyes and was about to walk closer to take a closer look when he heard the sect master's cold voice. Do you want to face the wall at Sword Peak? And Wanyan Qianhua looked at the red robe that he had pulled back from the hot spring with one hand and helped her put it on. Her eyes flashed slightly, and a smile overflowed from her lips. Only then did she get off his body and put on the robe. Leave at dawn tomorrow. He didn't look at her again. Instead, he said this to her. Wanyan Qianhua smiled and said, As the saying goes, it's easier to invite the devil and then to send him away. You saved me, and now you want me to leave? It won't be that easy. She smiled and walked back to the hot spring to take a bath. Chapter 31:55. On the other side, at the Blue Star Immortal Sect. In the main peak, the sect master called the peak lords of the various peaks together to discuss some matters. Seeing that everyone was sitting together, he stroked his beard and glanced at the various honorables before finally asking, Honorable CK and Honorable Mu Exin didn't come? Sect master, they're still recuperating from their injuries. A honorable stepped forward and said. Hearing this, the sect master nodded. Since they didn't come, I'll tell you about this matter. He paused and said, The restriction of the immortal sect's mystic realm loosened, and it was found to be the work of demonic cultivators. The main reason was to cause a disturbance in the mystic realm, causing the elite disciples of our four sects to die in this trial. He looked at the crowd and said, But fortunately, it was discovered early. Other than a few disciples who died in our sect and more than 20 who were seriously injured. Everyone else returned safely. As for the other 3 sects, it was said that they each lost 20 to 30 disciples out of the 100 disciples this time. Compared to them, our Blue Star Immortal sect's losses are considered light. Now, the restriction of the Mystic Realm has been reactivated by our 4 sect masters. However, because of this matter, this year's trial can only be cancelled. In addition, each sect has a mission, which is to select some disciples to be led by honorables to go to the demonic cultivators' territory to besiege the southern land ridge of the demonic cultivators as a warning to the demonic cultivators. Our Blue Star Immortal sect will send 50 people and 5 honorables. Hearing this, a honorable asked, "Sect Master, when will we set off?" The agreed time with the 4 sects is half a month later. As the sect master spoke, he looked at the crowd and asked, "Among the 5 honorables leading the team, who do you think is the most suitable?" Hearing this, the honorables quieted down. They looked at each other, and no one spoke. Seeing that everyone was silent and no one spoke, the sect leader stroked his beard and said, "Everyone, feel free to speak. The elders and I still need to discuss the venerables that you have recommended. Therefore, you can speak your opinions." Seeing this, 2 of the honorables looked at each other. One of them nudged the other with his elbow, indicating that he should speak. The other remained silent for a while before saying, "Sect Master, in terms of honorable strength, Honorable CK and Honorable Mu Xn are naturally the strongest among us. I think that they are the most suitable to lead the team, but they are seriously injured and are still recuperating, so that at this point he stopped talking and didn't say anything else. CK and Mu Xin were the strongest among them. Furthermore, they did not know that CK and Mu Xin had obtained 2 level 9 divine beasts in the secret realm. Their combat strength was unquestionable. If they were to lead the team to attack the demonic cultivators in the Southland Ridge, they should be among the 5 honorables. That's right, they are indeed stronger than all of you. However, as you said, they are currently recuperating and are seriously injured this time. I'm afraid that they are not suitable to be the honorable leaders this time. As the sect master spoke, he walked with his hands behind his back. After thinking for a while, he said, "You can go back first. I will discuss this matter with the elders and make a final decision." Yes, everyone responded and left first. 2 of the honorables stood where they were and did not leave. They thought for a while and seemed to hesitate. They had something to say, but did not know if they should say it. Chapter 31:56. The 2 of them thought for a moment and finally shook their heads. "No, it's nothing. Forget it. Let's wait for them to speak." Hence, the 2 of them bowed and left the room. As he watched the 2 of them leave, the sect leader's eyes flickered and he thought to himself, "They obviously have something to tell me. Why aren't they saying anything? What could it be?" When he thought of their expressions when they had mentioned the 2 supremacies, Mu Xin and CK, his heart skipped a beat. Could it have something to do with the 2 supremacies? After pondering for a moment, he gave some instructions and walked out, intending to see the 2 of them. On the other side, CK and Mu Xin, who were recuperating from their injuries, lived in the same courtyard and had company to chat with. The 2 of them talked about what had happened in the mystic realm and the 2 divine beasts. They couldn't help but sigh with emotion. If it wasn't for Master, we wouldn't have been able to tame the 9th level divine beast. That's right. The 9th level divine beast will soon become a sacred beast. After a few years, if it advances by another level, it will be incredible. Mu Xin couldn't help but look forward to it. Imagining a sacred beast by her side after a few years, that would be delightful. CK pondered deeply and asked, "How do you think Master was able to deal with the 9th level divine beast so easily?" That day, when she came down from the Immortal Ascension stairs and fought with us, she felt an ancient pressure. Could it be? Hearing this, Mu Xion's eyes flashed. It's very possible. The 2 of them were lying on a soft couch in the courtyard and talking when the sect leader walked in from outside. "Hee, how are the 2 of you? Are you feeling better?" The sect leader slowly walked over and asked the 2 of them. Seeing that it was the sect leader, The two of them hurriedly got up from the soft couch and bowed. Sect leader, you're both injured, so there's no need for formalities. Have a seat. The sect leader gestured and smiled as he walked to the table in the courtyard and sat down. We've made you worry, sect leader, the two of them said and sat down. The sect master's eyes flickered as he looked at the two of them. Both of you are seriously injured this time. When they came back, he came to see them. At that time, he saw that their internal and external injuries were not light. If such injuries were to happen to other people, they would probably not be able to get out of bed and walk around. However, they recovered very quickly. When the two of them heard this, they looked at each other and smiled. Actually, we have something to tell the sect master. After all, such a big thing had happened in the mystic realm. If they continue to hide it from the sect master and their master, it would cause unnecessary misunderstandings in the future. Oh, he smiled and asked, what is it? Sect master, actually, our master, Fungio, has also entered the secret realm this time. CK paused for a moment before continuing. Our injuries were caused by 2 level 9 divine beasts. It was our master who saved us in the nick of time. Hearing this, the sect leader was slightly stunned. She went in? What did she go in for? Our master went in for a 1,000-year-old black spiritual tendon. Later on, she tamed the 2 level 9 divine beasts that injured us and made them our contracted beasts. As they spoke, the two of them waved their sleeves, and 2 level 9 divine beasts appeared in front of the shocked sect leader. Looking at the 2 divine beasts, the sect leader's heart trembled. That Fungio had actually found 2 such powerful divine beasts for the two of them. This is really something to think about. Chapter 31:57. So you're saying that Fungio should still be in the sect? The sect leader asked. Yes. The two replied. Hearing this, the sect leader nodded. It's indeed your good fortune to have such a master. This was not the first time the sect leader had said this. Every time, the two of them felt deeply moved. It was indeed so. The sect leader looked at the two of them and said, recuperate well. There's no need to think too much about anything else. Recuperate first. Then, he told them not to send him off and left. Not long after he left, Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan walked in. After bowing to the two of them, Pei Zishuan said, Master, the sect is preparing to let the 5 venerable lords lead a team and select some disciples from the various disciples to join up with the people from the other 3 sections. We are preparing to besiege the southern land, Ridge Devil Cultivator's land. Hearing this, the two of them were stunned because the sect leader had not mentioned this to them. Have the 5 honored elders been selected? CK asked. Not yet. I heard that they're still discussing it. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. It would be one thing if they were not injured, but now that they were injured to this extent, they would not be able to fight for a while. After thinking about it, they remained silent and waved their hands, indicating that the two of them should leave. On the other side, in the cave, the exhausted Fungio finally walked out of the cave and looked at the sky outside with a smile. After working hard for so many days, she had finally refined the pill that could repair her meridians. In order to refine this pill that could repair the meridians of a heavenly god realm cultivator, she had tried many different refining methods in the space. After trying again and again, she had finally succeeded today. Now I can go home without worry, she said softly, looking at the sky and stretching her back. After refining the pill, she received a message from her sister. She knew that she was indeed in the carefree sect and that she was fine. This way, she no longer had to worry. Take a look at CK and Mu Xian and say goodbye to them before going back. Dusting his robe and brushing his sleeves, he walked towards the place where CK and Mu Xian were resting. In the evening, Fungio left the Blue Star Immortal sect and went to Four Corner City alone. And in the city, in the Feng Manor, the little guy, Xinyuan Hao, was staggering as he walked. His hands were outstretched as he tried to maintain his balance. His delicate face had a pure smile. Ma, father, mother. He walked with small steps. The more he walked, the more stable and happy he became. He kept calling out to his parents softly. Lung Shuang followed behind him and watched. Seeing that the little master who had been taking care of him was walking more and more steadily, his eyes couldn't help but soften. Little master slowed down. Seeing him stumble forward a few steps and then stabilize his body so that he didn't fall, she couldn't help but exhale softly. Nyang, 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 nyang. The little guy walked forward. Because he was walking, he suddenly fell forward. His small hands and knees rubbed against the sand on the ground. Immediately, his small mouth flattened and his eyes turned red. He sniffed and looked back at Lung Shuang. Not far away, Elder Mei, who was sweeping the ground, saw this and quickly rushed over. Just as he was about to help him up, he was stopped by Lung Shuang. Chapter 31:58. Hearing this, Elder Mei was stunned. He's still so young. This is what the master said. When a child falls, we can't help him up. We have to teach him to stand up on his own. As Lung Shuang spoke, she walked forward slowly. Her gaze was still on the little boy. You have to stand up on your own. You have to stand up on your own. Then you'll be a good boy. The little boy sniffled and pouted. His eyes were red and watery, and he looked like he had been wronged. He looked at Lung Shuang and even reached out to her. In a soft voice, he said, "Andy, hug me." Elder Mei couldn't bear to see this. Such a young child, how could he not stand up on your own? Auntie will hug you, Lung Shuang said, looking at him encouragingly. The little boy sat on the ground with his hands outstretched. When he saw that she wasn't going to carry him, he blinked and finally got up on his own. His little hands were bleeding from the friction. He reached out his hands and said, "Annie, huff, huff." Hearing this, Lung Shuang couldn't help but smile. She hugged him lovingly and patted his head. Then, she took his hand and looked at it. "It's bleeding, but don't worry. Annie will apply some medicine for you." "Medicine, medicine," the little boy said happily. He raised his hand and put it in front of his face. Then he pouted and blew on it. "Huff, huff, huff, it doesn't hurt." When Elder Mei saw this, he felt gratified and rueful. As expected, it was the right decision to let him stay. It was indeed the best arrangement for him to stay here. Moreover, he was becoming more mature day by day. Elder Mei really wanted to hold him in the palm of her hand and take good care of him. Lung Shuang washed his hand with water and applied some ointment. "All right, don't touch it. It won't hurt in a while." "Yes, yes, it doesn't hurt." The little boy nodded obediently and smiled innocently. He turned and continued walking forward. The more he walked, the more steady he became. When he reached the courtyard, he saw Xianyuan Mose practicing his sword. His eyes lit up and he pounced on him. "Daddy," he called out happily and threw himself forward. Xianyuan Mose sheathed his sword behind his back and caught the little guy. "Slow down. Daddy, huff, huff." He directly raised his little hand and looked at him while blinking his eyes. When Xianyuan Mose saw this, he picked him up and sat him down. "Did you fall?" "I fell, it hurts." She looked at him with her clear, watery eyes, and her soft voice was very pleasant. "It's okay. Boys don't feel pain," Xianyuan Mose said and touched his head. When old Mei, who had followed them all the way here, heard this, he could not help but roll his eyes. Boys don't feel pain? What kind of logic was this? The little guy did not seem to understand what it meant by boys not feeling pain. Therefore, he raised his hand in front of old Mei and said in a childish voice, "I fell, it hurts. Daddy, huff." When he heard this, Xianyuan Mose's expression froze. He seemed a little clumsy and did not know how to huff. He held the little guy's hand and studied it for a while. Finally, he took out a bottle of ointment and applied a thick layer of ointment to the small scratch. "Yes, it's done." As he spoke, he found a cloth and bandaged the little guy's hand. He even tied a beautiful bow for him. The little guy blinked his eyes and looked at his thickly wrapped hand. He couldn't help but stare blankly for a while. He looked at his hand and finally smiled happily. Piao piao. Chapter 31:59. The corner of Elder Mei's mouth twitched. His young master's taste was really bad. How could he say that a small hand looked good when it was wrapped up like a pig's trotter? He really couldn't understand a child's thoughts. When Feng Jiu entered the mansion, Elder Mei sensed it. He turned around and said, "It seems like someone's here. I'll go take a look." After saying that, he walked outside. However, before he could walk outside, he saw Fengjiu walk in with Leng Hua behind him. "Young miss, you're back." Elder maid greeted her with a smile. "Did your trip go smoothly?" Fengjiu smiled. "Yes, I'm back. Everything went smoothly. Is everything okay at home?" "Don't worry. Everything's fine at home. Our young master can walk now, and he can talk a lot more. He's accompanying the Yama Lord in the courtyard right now," Elder May said. He couldn't help but smile when he thought of his young master's hand. When Fengjiu heard that, she turned around and said to Leng Hua, "Go make the arrangements. We'll go out for dinner tonight." "Okay," Leng Hua replied. He nodded and left first. Fengjiu and Elder May walked into the courtyard together. As they walked, they asked, "Did Du Fan and the others say when they'll be back from their mission?" "No, but they should be back soon," Elder May said. "Qin Xin has been practicing the zither at the back of the mountain recently. She seems to have improved a lot. Young miss, do you want to ask her to come back and meet you? There aren't many people at home. You should inform her. Tell her to go out for dinner tonight." As she said that, she looked at Elder May. "You should come with us." Hearing that, Old May rubbed his bald head and said, "Forget about me. You guys go ahead. I'll stay here and keep watch." He didn't want to show his bald head in front of others. The two of them talked as they walked. Before long, they arrived at the courtyard. When Fengjiu saw the little guy in Xianyuan Mo's arms, she raised her eyebrows. "Are you hurt?" "He's fine. He just accidentally fell down when he was running just now." Leng Shuang helped him apply some medicine, and Lord Yin helped him apply some medicine and bandage it up. "That's how it is." Speaking of this, he laughed. "My lady." The little guy was originally in Xianyuan Mo's arms. When he saw Fengjiu return, he was pleasantly surprised. He slipped off the bed and ran to her with his short legs. Of course, Fengjiu's assistess. "Miss Nianqin," he said in a childish voice as he looked at her with a happy smile. Fengjiu heard this and kissed him on the cheek. "Good boy." Xianyuan Mo's walked over. "How was your trip? Why did you come back earlier than you said? Was there an accident?" "Yes." Fengjiu responded and looked at him with a smile. "I've refined the elixir. In fact, I left the secret realm a few days ago, but I stayed in the immortal sect for a few days. I'll tell you about it after the banquet." As she spoke, she handed the child to Leng Shuang. "Take Hao to the front first. We'll go out for dinner later." "Yes," Leng Shuang answered and took the child. "Then I'll go to the back of the mountain to inform Qin Xin." Elder May turned around and left, leaving the two of them alone. Fengjiu went to take a bath first. She removed the disguise on her face and changed her clothes. Not long after, she came out and lay down on the soft couch. "I thought I would stay in the arcane realm for 3 months. I didn't expect to come out in less than a month. Did something happen inside?" Xianyuan Mo's asked. Chapter 3160. She told him about everything that had happened inside and released the contracted beasts from her space, letting them wander around the mansion. "So you're saying that you've also helped them obtain 2 9th-rank divine beasts?" Xianyuan Mo's looked at her with a slight flicker in his eyes. "Yes, this way, it can be said that their strength has increased a little. At least, if they encounter divine beasts like this in the future, they won't only be injured." As she spoke, she smiled. "Moreover, the two of them just happened to encounter these divine beasts. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have found 2 divine beasts like this for them." They chatted in the courtyard, and she told him about everything that had happened in the past few days. In the end, she took out a medicinal pill and said, "Take this medicinal pill. Find a time to take it to regulate your breath." Xianyuan Mo's took the medicinal pill and put it away, saying, "I'll find a time to take this medicinal pill." As he said this, he held her hand. "Gio, let's go into closed-door cultivation together. Elder May and Leng Hua are watching over the mansion, so you can rest assured." Fengjiu thought for a moment and said, "I've just broken through recently, so I'm afraid I won't be able to break through in a short period of time. Therefore, I'm thinking of taking advantage of the time when you're cultivating to study medicinal pills and refine some more." She chuckled and joked, "It's fine. When you're cultivating, I'll be watching over you and won't run off again." Hearing this, Xin Yuan Mo smiled helplessly and didn't say anything more. He'll just let her be. As the sky gradually darkened, they sat in the Spirit Deer carriage and headed out, preparing to go to a restaurant to eat. Apart from Du Fan and the others who were out on a mission, only Elder May and a few contracted bees stayed in the mansion to watch over them. The others followed them outside. After Lung Hua told the waiter about the room he reserved in the largest restaurant in Sifong City, he followed the waiter upstairs. Your room's on the 3rd floor. You can see the scenery of the city from there. Our rooms on the 3rd floor are all unique. Every one of them is different, and they're half open. Since it's your first time here, I'm sure you'll have a good time. The waiter walked in front of them and introduced them while sizing them up. He said with a smile, "Moreover, our restaurant has many specialty dishes and special spirit fruit wine." Under the waiter's introduction, they entered a room on the 3rd floor. Although it was called a room, it had a large open window that allowed them to see the night view of Sifong City. Looking out from the 3rd floor, it was as if stars were sprinkling down. It was extremely beautiful and pleasing. There were 2 tables in the room, one large table and one small table, which had been prepared by Lung Hua's order. Although their master treated them like family and didn't usually distinguish between master and servant, he thought that since their master and the Yama Lord hadn't seen each other for a long time, they must have a lot to talk about. Therefore, they didn't want to sit at the same table with them. After all, formally speaking, master and servant shouldn't sit at the same table. Lung Hua, order whatever you want to eat. When we go back, see if there's anything good to go with wine. Just bring some wine back for Elder May, Feng Jiu said with a smile. Okay. Lung Hua responded and sat down at another table with them. Even Ying Yi, who had been hiding in the dark, was called out to eat. Chapter 3162. Lung Hua responded and saw the 2 of them get out of the beast carriage. In a flash, they went in the direction of those people. Lung Hua was holding the sleeping Hao while Qin Xian was sitting beside Lung Hua. After seeing them leave, she also drove the beast carriage back. On the other side, Ying Yi secretly followed those people to a courtyard. When he was about to go in and take a look, he saw that his master and the ghost doctor had both arrived and were waiting for them outside. Master, the ghost doctor. When the 2 of them came closer, he called out. They went in. Xin Yuan Mo's asked, looking in front. Yes, I was just about to go in and take a look. He was actually curious. Why were the 2 of them here? You stay outside and guard. As Xin Yuan Mo spoke, he glanced at Feng Jiu beside him. The 2 of them took a step and rushed inside. At this time, in the courtyard, the few men in black who had entered first sent the kidnapped people into the room in the courtyard and then retreated to stand guard outside the courtyard. In the room in the courtyard, 2 men opened the black cloth bag on the ground, revealing a young woman inside. The material of the woman's clothes was not bad. It could be seen that she was a woman from a wealthy family. Her appearance was also very good. The light yellow dress on her made her look even more gentle and beautiful. The 2 men seemed to be very used to this kind of thing. Looking at the unconscious woman, they did not have any expression. Instead, they carried her to the big bed in the inner room and took out some medicine to let the woman smell it. Then, they fed her a pill and quietly retreated, closing the door and standing guard outside the courtyard. At this time, a middle-aged man with gray hair pushed a wheelchair out from behind the screen. His gaze was gloomy and full of hostility. The corners of his pursed lips drooped, giving people an inexplicable feeling of depression. He pushed the wheelchair to the side of the bed and watched as the woman on the bed slowly regained consciousness. However, her eyes were half opened and half squinted. Her face was flushed red, and her hair was loose and messy. Her hand unconsciously tugged at her collar as she groaned softly. Due to the friction between her legs, the gauze skirt on her body was lifted up slightly, revealing her fair, round, and alluring long legs. The woman's collar was also slightly loosened due to her movements, and the lotus-colored didu was also half open. A touch of spring was faintly visible. Her soft snort was alluring and seductive. However, the middle-aged man in the wheelchair still had a gloomy expression on his face as he stared at her with a ruthless expression. Suddenly, The middle-aged man's hand moved, and a golden thread wrapped around one of the woman's feet on the bed. He pulled it and tied it to the end of the bed. Immediately after, a few other threads flew out and wrapped around her other hands and feet, fixing the woman on the bed in a shape. At this time, the woman's dress was already half removed, revealing her jade-like skin. Ignoring the infuriating look of the woman on the bed, he took out a small knife and played with it in his hand. Then, he used the edge of the knife to lightly pat the woman's face. Although the sharp knife was used to lightly pat the woman's face, it still left a thin mark on the woman's face. Chapter 3163. At the window, Xianyuan Mose hugged Fengjiu and turned around to avoid the attack. However, just as they stood still, they saw a middle-aged man sitting in a wheelchair at the door, staring at them coldly. When a man's cold gaze swept past Xianyuan Mose and landed on Fengjiu, Xianyuan Mose frowned slightly, and a cold, murderous intent flashed across his deep black eyes. The middle-aged man's cold gaze was as if he had found his prey, and Fengjiu instantly attacked him. A strong airflow gathered into a palm wind that whistled out, and the fierce, murderous intent was aimed at the man's face. Whoosh! When the middle-aged man saw Xianyuan Mose attacking, he narrowed his eyes without fear. He slapped the wheelchair with his hand, and the entire wheelchair flew out along with him. At the same time, he gathered spiritual power in his palm and attacked Xianyuan Mose. However, the moment he attacked, a black airflow spread out from his palm. Seeing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed slightly. Just as he was about to step forward, he saw Xianyuan Mose's palm strike, and the black airflow that the man released was pushed back. Whoosh! Whoosh! Bang! The two forces collided, and the middle-aged man in the wheelchair flew out with the wheelchair. At the same time, he pulled the mechanism on the wheelchair, and several poisonous needles shot out from the wheelchair's handle, attacking Xianyuan Mose. Xianyuan Mose turned around and used his sleeve to block the poisonous needles. When he looked again, he saw that the middle-aged man had disappeared. He could not help but frown. The man's attack was fatal and ruthless. He was not weak, but when he knew that he was no match for him, he decisively chose to escape. This man was not simple. He turned around and walked towards Fengjiu. Seeing her thoughtful expression, he asked, "What are you thinking about?" "That person's dark aura." Fengjiu frowned. "It seems to be the aura of the Dark Lotus. However, this person's dark aura isn't strong." Even so, he guessed that this person must be related to the Black Lotus Master. Her eyes flickered when she recalled how she had destroyed the Black Lotus Lord's base. She knew that if they met again, it was only a matter of time before she fought with the Black Lotus Lord. At that time, it would depend on whose combat power was stronger. However, there had been no news of the Black Lotus Lord since then. Moreover, she had come here again, so she had completely forgotten about the Black Lotus Lord. She did not expect to see the aura of the Black Lotus here again. Xianyuan Mose's eyes flickered. Chi of the Black Lotus? Thinking of the time when Fengjiu was injured by the chi of the Black Lotus, his gaze deepened. He thought to himself, "It seems that I have to hurry up and improve my strength. Let's go in and take a look," Fengjiu said. When they entered the room and saw the woman on the bed, she raised her eyebrows and looked at Xianyuan Mose. However, he had already turned around and left. He only said, "I'll wait for you outside." Come in," Fengjiu called out and walked to the side of the bed to take a look at the woman. "Ghost Doctor." He stepped forward and glanced at the woman with the same expression as before looking away. "Check this woman's identity and send her back secretly." Fengjiu fed the woman an elixir and walked out. Chapter 3164. Fengjiu responded. He had thought that it was a rapist, but he did not expect it to be a sadistic and gloomy man. Furthermore, this man had the aura of the Black Lotus, so he must be related to the Black Lotus Lord. The two of them returned first, leaving only Yi behind to deal with the remaining matters. After returning to the residence, Xianyuan Mose came out from his bath and saw Fengjiu sitting at the table, deep in thought. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" Fengjiu looked at him and said, "I'm thinking that neither the Black Lotus Lord nor the heavily injured Devil Lord have appeared again. This period of peace has allowed us to relax a little. I wonder what they are preparing for. I have a feeling that they won't give up just like that." Hearing this, he said slowly, "Don't worry too much. Just follow your usual routine. Du Fan and the others have been out and about recently. We can leave the matter of gathering information to them. Before the Black Lotus Lord and the others make a move, we can ignore everything else." I know." Fengjiu responded and stood up. "You should rest first. I'll go take a bath." Xinyuan Mose nodded and walked into the inner room. Fengjiu walked towards the outer bathroom. On the other side, Emo Chun, who was dressed in white, walked slowly on a small path in the dense forest. His white sleeves fluttered gently in the breeze. His footsteps were leisurely and gentle. The path was quiet and elegant. Occasionally, the chirping of birds and insects could be heard. Between the dense forest and trees, there was a faint mist that filled the air, adding a touch of tranquility and mystery to this place. After passing through the dense forest path and passing through the area covered by clouds, he stopped and raised his head slightly to look ahead. He saw an ancient and mysterious palace on the mountain peak. Clouds twined around it, and it was faintly discernible, as if it was a paradise on earth. Suddenly, a flock of red-crowned cranes flapped their wings and flew out from the top of the clouds. They flew through the clouds and into the blue sky. One of the red-crowned cranes let out a cry and swooped down from the sky towards him, who was standing in the open space. When it got close to him, its speed suddenly decreased and it circled above his head. Then it flapped its wings and flew up into the sky, crying out, but it did not leave. "Which immortal is here?" A dignified and distant voice came from the clouds. It was like a bell in an ancient temple. The voice was sonorous and powerful, penetrating the clouds and reverberating in the sky. "Your teacher, Tianjizi." Emo Chan stood against the wind, his white robes fluttering in the wind. His voice contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy. It was neither fast nor slow, neither arrogant nor humble. It reverberated in the sky and reached the clouds. "Welcome." When the word "welcome" came out, it was as if a golden light had spread out from the clouds. At this moment, from the seemingly empty palace on the peak of the clouds, there were actually 20 young men and women in fluttering white robes. They stepped on the wind and white clouds and walked towards Mo Chen's direction. However, they did not land on the ground. Instead, they stood in the sky. It was just that the 20 of them stood on two sides. At this moment, a red carpet flew out from the clouds and spread out until it reached Mo Chun. "Please." Chapter 3165. Seeing this, Mo Chun slowly walked towards the red carpet. His pace was leisurely, neither fast nor slow. As he walked on the red carpet, every step he took was as if he was walking on flat ground. His steps were steady and his posture was elegant. The 20 men and women looked at him, their eyes filled with curiosity. They looked at the man in white, who looked like a banished immortal walking slowly. His steps were calm and elegant, and they couldn't help but guess in their hearts, "Who is this person?" Mo Chan walked along the red carpet towards the palace at the top of the clouds. As he walked forward, he gradually approached the palace. The 20 men and women behind him also slowly followed. He only stopped when he arrived in front of the majestic ancient palace. "Please." The ancient doors slowly opened. Inside, 2 rows of men and women in white stood. Their gazes all fell on Mo Chun. Mo Chun slowly walked in, step by step. When he arrived at the doors, a middle-aged man walked out with a smile and stood in front of Mo Chun. "A guest from afar, please come in." As he spoke, he gestured for Mo Chun to enter. Mo Chun nodded slightly and followed the middle-aged man inside. When he arrived at the ancient palace, he saw the immortal-like old man sitting on the main seat of the ancient palace. Mo Chun cupped his hands and bowed. Nalanimo, Chun greets the palace lord. In the main hall, there are people sitting on both sides. Some were old men, some were middle-aged men with goatees, and some were young men and women. Their gazes all fell on Mo Chun, silently, sizing him up. "How is your master?" asked the white-bearded old man in the main seat with a benevolent expression. His kind gaze landed on Mo Chin's body, and he just quietly looked at her. "My master is doing well. He asked me to send his regards to the palace lord. He also brought a brocade pouch for you." As he spoke, he took out a brocade pouch and handed it to a disciple beside him. The disciple took it and handed it to the palace lord before retreating to the side. After receiving the brocade pouch, the palace lord did not open it. Instead, he looked meaningfully at Mo Chun, then said to the people in the hall, "From today onwards, Nalan Mo Chun, will be the holy son of the divine temple." Hearing this, the people below could not help but be stunned. Holy son? Their gazes fell on the man in white, and they were surprised. The position of the holy son of the divine temple had been empty for many years. The palace lord had never mentioned it, but today, "Palace lord, may I ask who this is?" Just based on the name Nalan Machin, they had no idea who this person was. What ability did he have to be the holy son of the divine temple? Hearing an old man's question, the others' gazes also landed on the hallmaster. Before this, the temple lord had not mentioned the candidate for the holy son to them. Why would he suddenly let this person become the holy son of the temple? The divine temple was not an ordinary power. The position of holy son was extremely important. How could an ordinary person take up the position? Not to mention the people in the hall who were surprised. Even Mo Chun himself was stunned when he heard the palace lord's words. His master had only ordered him to deliver the brocade pouch, but did not say anything about making him the holy son. Why did the palace lord suddenly speak up? Chapter 3166. He paused and smiled. His kind gaze fell on Mo Chun. "Furthermore, to be able to become the disciple of my senior brother, Tianjizi, how can you be an ordinary person?" Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled. Their gazes all fell on Mo Chun. One of them stepped forward and said, "If you are the holy son of the divine temple, how can you only have strength without saint energy? I wonder what makes you different from the others." Obviously, they would not easily admit that someone who came out of nowhere was the holy son. To become the holy lord of the divine temple, he must have strength that could convince them. Otherwise, even if he became the holy son, the people below him would not be convinced. Mo Chun smiled faintly when he heard their words. His warm and deep gaze swept past them before finally landing on the hallmaster. He said, "I don't want to become a chosen son. Hallmaster, please choose someone else. Now that I have delivered my master's brocade pouch, I should take my leave." As he spoke, he clasped his hands and bowed. Then, he turned to leave. At this moment, the temple lord on the main seat laughed and stopped him. "Wait." The temple lord looked at Mo Chun with a smile. When he stopped, he smiled and said, "You might not have understood what I meant." He smiled and stood up. With his hands behind his back, he slowly walked down. He said, "The position of the holy son of the divine temple has been empty for many years. Your master, my senior brother, also left a look for you. On you, other than bearing the responsibility of the holy son, you are also the guardian of the star of the phoenix. You should have met the star of the phoenix long ago, right?" Hearing this, Mo Chin's eyes flashed. He turned to look at the temple lord but did not speak. When the others heard this, their expressions changed. For a moment, they were silent. No one knew what they were thinking. The temple lord came before Mo Chun and looked at him. He slowly said, "You should have heard about the star of the phoenix long ago. As the guardian of the star of the phoenix, your responsibility is no small matter." He walked slowly through the hall and arrived at the entrance step by step, and then he placed his hands behind his back as he looked at the sky outside and sighed. The world is about to fall into chaos. The imperial monarch and phoenix star will encounter a great calamity. Once the calamity moves, the three dimensions will fall into chaos. The living beings will be plunged into misery and suffering, and all the living beings in the world will feel as if they've fallen into hell. He paused and turned to look at Imo-chan. If you don't inherit the son of the saint and take on the responsibilities of the son of the saint, are you going to watch all of this happen? Imo-chan pursed his lips and remained silent for a while. No one knew what he was thinking about. After a long while, he asked, "What else do I need to do to take over the position of saint?" "You need to enter the sacred tower to cultivate." The palace master looked at him and said, "In there, you need to sever your 7 emotions and 6 desires. You need to sever the threads of love and obtain the saint power." Upon hearing this, Imo-chan's gaze faintly flickered before he slowly withdrew his gaze. After a while, he said, "Since that is the case, I will trouble Hall Master to make the arrangements." The sanctum head took a deep look at Zhang Xian before nodding. He turned to the elder beside him and said, "Bring the inceptive sage to the sanctum of sages so that he can rest properly." "Yes," the elder replied. He bowed respectfully to Imo-chan and gestured for him to leave. "Inceptive sage, please follow me." "Thank you," Imo-chan said. He nodded at the temple lord before leaving with the elder. After Imo-chan left, someone could not help but ask, "Temple lord, why must he be the inceptive sage?" Chapter 31:67. Hearing those words, the crowd looked at one another, still unable to understand. The words heavens will contain too many meanings. Perhaps there was a reason behind it that they were unaware of in the sanctum of sages. The old man leading the way brought Imo-chan around the sanctum of sages as he explained, "My lord, although no one has lived in this place for many years, there are still people coming here to clean it every day. Furthermore, we have everything you need for daily use here." As he spoke, the old man brought him to a place and said, "Other than the main hall at the front, the back is where the Lord resides. The sanctum of sages is a sacred place. Without the Lord's permission, no one is allowed to step into the sanctum of sages. There is a hot spring in the middle of the hall where the Lord can bathe. Behind the hot spring is a cliff, and the Saint Tower is also behind the sanctum of sages. There is a formation barrier around the Saint Tower, and other than the sanctum head, no one has ever entered it." As the old man spoke, he brought Imo-chan around to familiarize himself with the surroundings. Finally, he bowed and said, "My lord, please take a rest first. The sanctum head will arrange for the servants to serve you later. When the time comes, I will bring them here to pay you a visit." "And you may go," Imo-chan replied and allowed the old man to leave. Only then did the old man leave, leaving Imo-chan standing alone on the mountain peak. He looked at the clouds in front of him, looked at the boundless sky, and there seemed to be something churning in the depths of his eyes. No matter how the cold wind blew, he stood there motionlessly with his hands clasped behind his back. No one knew what he was thinking about 3 days later in the morning. On this day, everyone from the Sanctum of Sages was gathered in front of the main hall. They were an ancient lineage, and even though there weren't many people in the Sanctum of Sages, every single one of them was an influential figure in the outside world. Due to their pride, they were unwilling to easily acknowledge the sudden appearance of Nalan Imo-chan as the Lord of the Sanctum of Sages. One must know that the Lord of the Sanctum of Sages was equivalent to the Sanctum of Sages. Even the Sanctum head had to respectfully address him as the Lord of the Sanctum of Sages. It was precisely because his status was going to be extraordinary that no one was willing to easily admit to him. They all wanted to know what he was capable of. Looking at the man in white, who was as handsome as an immortal, the people below exchanged glances. When the Lord of the Temple announced that from today onwards, Nalan Imo-chan would be the son of the temple, some people stood up. Hall Master, a middle-aged man, cupped his hands and bowed. Then he looked towards Nalan Imo-chan, who was dressed in white, and said in a deep and dignified voice, "I have 3 questions. Holy Son, please enlighten me." When the palace master saw this, he glanced at them and sighed softly. He said to Imo-chan, If you want them to be convinced, it looks like you have to deal with it yourself. Imo-chan smiled and slowly took a step forward. Looking at the middle-aged man, he asked, "Which 3 questions are you referring to?" The first question is about virtue. "May I ask, what virtue does the Holy Sun possess?" The middle-aged man asked in a deep voice. His voice was filled with spiritual energy and clearly entered everyone's ears. Hearing this, Imo-chan smiled warmly. Giving up one's desires to obtain virtue. "As for me, I am following the will of the heavens. How can I not possess virtue?" Everyone was silent for a while. No one spoke. After a while, the middle-aged man asked again. The second question is about the heart. "May I ask, Holy Sun, have you ever thought of sacrificing yourself for the world?" Chapter 3168. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. They had thought that he would say that he had already cast aside his own life and death and was prepared to sacrifice himself for the world. Who would have thought that he would say that the world had nothing to do with him? There was only one person he wanted to protect. For a moment, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. They could not believe it. Shouldn't the chosen saint have compassion for the world? How could he say that he did not care about the world and only wanted to protect one person? The hallmaster's eyes flashed when he heard this. He looked at the fairy-like man with one hand behind his back and the other in front of his abdomen. He sighed softly in his heart. If you are the chosen saint, shouldn't you have compassion for the world? Don't you think it's inappropriate for the chosen saint to say this? The middle-aged man continued to ask. His eyes were fixed on Imo-chan, who was dressed in white and seemed to be untainted by the world. Even he had to admit that Imo-chan's temperament was extremely outstanding. Immortal chi surrounded his body, and he was noble and extraordinary. He did not have a fierce and intimidating aura. He only had a gentle and refined aura. However, no one dared to underestimate him. Now that he was under great pressure to ask this question, he was also a little flustered. This person was the chosen saint that the hall master had personally appointed. He was a candidate chosen according to the will of the heavens. He was a disciple personally taught by the hall master's senior brother. He was the chosen saint that the hall master had found after many years of searching. What Imo-chan was doing now was challenging his authority. It would be a lie to say that he was not flustered. What does the world have to do with me? Who is the world to me? Imo-chan's deep and calm gaze also landed on the middle-aged man. He looked at him and slowly said, "If I am the chosen saint, I will not do it for the world, nor for the people of the world. I will only follow my heart and do as I please." Hearing this, the middle-aged man could not say a word. The others were the same. They could only stare at him in a daze. They did not expect him to be such a chosen saint. Seeing that everyone was silent and didn't say anything, only staring at him blankly, Imo-chan smiled and asked, "What's the last question?" When the middle-aged man heard this question, he suddenly came back to his senses. He calmed himself down and looked at Imo-chan's hesitant expression. After pausing for a moment, he carefully asked 3 questions of love. "May I ask the Holy Sun if love belongs to anyone? Can it really sever the 7 emotions and 6 desires? If one were to become a saint, one would need to sever all emotions and desires in order to cultivate to great success. Only by obtaining the saint power in the Holy Tower would one have the power to protect." However, he had previously said that the common people of the world had nothing to do with him and that he only wanted to protect one person in his life. He knew that the person he wanted to protect was undoubtedly the Phoenix Star. However, was this kind of protection due to emotions? A wisp of dim light flashed through Imo-chan's eyes when he heard this. He looked at the middle-aged man to the point the middle-aged man was unable to look him in the eye. The middle-aged man could only lower his head slightly and lower his eyes to conceal the uneasiness and panic in his eyes. Yes, everyone has emotions and desires. I am no exception. It is because of this that I need to enter the pagoda to cultivate wholeheartedly, Imo-chan said slowly. His gaze swept across the crowd, and he asked, "Is there anyone else who has something to say? Today, I will allow you to ask questions." I forgive you for going against your superiors and repeatedly testing me. However, after today, if anyone shows the slightest disrespect, they will all be severely punished. Chapter 31:69. The people below looked at him and thought to themselves. These 3 questions and 3 answers had made them unable to ask anything else. There were no more questions, but why hadn't they seen his strength yet? Since he had allowed them to test him today, they couldn't miss this opportunity. Thus, a few people looked at each other and whispered a few words. Finally, an old man stepped forward and bowed to Imo-chan. He said, "Holy Sun, if I may be so bold, I would like to ask the Holy Sun to teach me a few moves." Hearing this, Imo-chan looked at the old man with a gentle smile on his lips. He said slowly, "All right, come forward." Hearing this, the crowd could not help but feel their hearts in their mouths as they looked at the old man. This old man was the great elder of the divine temple and was a powerful cultivator who had reached the heavenly god realm. If he were to attack, would the white-robed holy sun on the stage? Just as he was thinking this, he saw the head elder standing there motionlessly. His face was red and his forehead was covered in sweat. It was as if he was under great pressure. His body was tense, but his legs didn't move a single step. The spirit force in his body surged, and the powerful pressure and aura made the surrounding people involuntarily retreat. What's wrong with the great elder? Didn't the Holy Sun ask him to come forward? Why is he just standing there and using his spiritual energy to suppress him? A young woman asked softly. A man beside her replied in a low voice, "Look carefully. It's not that the great elder is not moving. He can't move. He's being suppressed by the Holy Sun's pressure and can't take a step forward." How can that be? The great elder is a powerful cultivator at the heavenly god realm. Could it be that the Holy Sun is stronger than the great elder? The Holy Sun is the direct disciple of the temple master. How can he be weak? It's not surprising that he can suppress the great elder's strength. Otherwise, the temple master would not have just stood there and watched as if it had nothing to do with him. I didn't expect the Holy Sun to be so powerful. It looks like no one will object anymore, right? It's hard to say. A middle-aged man spoke, and then he gazed at the white-clothed Holy Sun on the arena and said, "There's still one more test to be completed in order to make everyone in the divine hall be convinced." Hearing this, someone at the side asked, "Which stage?" Naturally, it's the ability of a saint. As the middle-aged man spoke, he saw that the first elder in front of him could no longer support himself and fall to the ground. His back was covered in sweat, and his face was pale as he looked at the stage. "I've lost, and I accept my loss wholeheartedly," said the great elder. After calming down for a moment, he stood up and bowed respectfully. His face went from red to pale, and no one could understand the pressure he had to endure. It was precisely because of this that he knew that the saint's strength was indeed above his own, and he had no choice but to accept it. Imo-chan nodded slightly, looked at the crowd and asked, "Who else?" Looking at the white-clothed Holy Sun on the arena, his expression was the same as before. His face was gentle and his temperament was refined, but he seemed to have everything under control. This caused those who were thinking of how to speak up to hesitate for a moment. He was powerful and confident. Today's test had exceeded their expectations time and time again, causing those who wanted to step forward to test him to hesitate. This was because the white-clothed Holy Sun on the arena made them feel uncertain. Chapter 31:70. May I ask if you're proficient in the 5 elements and 8 trigrams, or the North Star numbers? He did not mention that he wanted to test Imo-chan's ability in this area. Instead, he asked if Imo-chan knew anything about these things. "I know a little," Imo-chan said as his gaze fell on the person. Hearing this, the person paused for a moment before saying, "Your teacher is the temple master's senior brother. I think you must have learned a lot from him. It seems that we have overstepped our boundaries." He did not ask to test Imo-chan's ability in this area again. Since Imo-chan had already said that he knew a little, that was enough. The temple master would deal with the rest. There was no need for them to say anything more. The saint coronation ceremony ended with everyone bowing in respect. From this day onwards, the divine temple finally had a saint that everyone in the divine temple respected. As night fell, Imo-chan, who had returned to the Sanctum of Sages, made a detour around the main hall and walked over to the hot spring. He took off his clothes and stepped into the warm water. His body submerged slightly in the water, leaving only half of his body exposed. Leaning against the side, he looked at the twinkling stars in the pitch-black night sky. He couldn't help but slowly close his eyes, allowing his body to relax in the hot spring water. Scenes of memories flashed through his mind a few days later in Sifong City. Lunghua, had they sent back any news? Fengjiu asked Lunghua, Du Fan, and the others. Still no news, Lunghua said. He thought for a moment and said, Master, should I go and take a look? Fengjiu waved his hand. No, I will go. You stay in the residence and take care of things. Since Du Fan and the others went on a mission, they had not returned and there was no news. She thought that something must have happened. Otherwise, they would have sent back a message. But the Yama Lord is in closed-door training. If Master leaves, there will only be a few of us left in the residence. I am worried that Lunghua was a little worried. After all, the Yama Lord was in seclusion and the little master was in the mansion. If the little master left, only a few of them would be left to guard the mansion. If something happened, then don't worry, I'll leave the Fire Phoenix behind to guard the residence. Elder May is also here, so you guys will be fine. She said slowly, Make the arrangements, I'll leave tonight. Seeing this, Lunghua could only reply, Yes. Then he began to make arrangements. Elder May was surprised when he found out that she was going to leave. Miss, you just came back not long ago, and you're going out again. They haven't returned yet, so I have to go and take a look no matter what, Fengjiu said, looking at him. I'll leave the manor to you. Don't let anything happen. Don't worry, Mississippi. As long as Elder May is still alive, I will guard this place well and not let anything happen to them. He smiled and said, Since Miss wants to go and take a look, then don't worry and go. Those people did not know that the little master was hiding here, and now that he was here, it would be even harder for those people to find the little master. For now, everything was still safe. Fengjiu nodded. She left instructions to Lunghua, Lung Shuang, Elder May, Hui Lang, and the others. She also instructed the Fire Phoenix to guard this place well. When evening came and the sky was getting dark, she quietly left the residence. Chapter 3171. However, it had already been so many days, yet they had not returned. Furthermore, there was no news. She was worried that they might have encountered some unforeseen circumstances on their way back. Taking advantage of the night, she left the city in the middle of the night and flew on her sword. When she was getting further and further away from Four Corner City, she felt that the communication jade tablet in her space had some movement. Taking it out, she saw that it was a message from Du Fan asking for help. Immediately, her gaze darkened. Following the direction indicated on the jade tablet, she sped up, hoping to reach them as soon as possible. No matter how serious the situation was, Du Fan and the others would not send out a distress signal. This was because they felt that if her subordinates did not even have the ability to protect themselves, and even had to ask their master for help, then what was the use of having them? Therefore, even though she had always told them to ask for her help if they encountered any danger, they had never obeyed her orders. However, this time, they had sent out a distress signal. It was obvious how dangerous their current situation was. When she saw this message, two reactions appeared in her mind. One was that they were in danger and their lives were hanging by a thread. The second was that they had fallen into the hands of the enemy. Even their distress signal had fallen into the hands of the enemy to lure her over. Regardless of which one it was, she had to go and take a look, even if it was just a trap. In a dense forest, the unconscious Du Fan and the others were trapped in a barrier and unable to come out. Their bodies were stained with blood, and some of their wounds were still bleeding. One by one, they lay motionless within the barrier. If it were not for their rising and falling chests, one would have thought that they were already dead. Outside the barrier, a black-clothed man came in front of a black-clothed middle-aged man and reported respectfully that Fengjiu has already left the city. The people who have arranged for an ambush have already been prepared. The black-clothed man replied. With his hands behind his back, he glanced at the people in the barrier and said, "These people are trapped here. Don't touch them. I have set up a trap in the surroundings. We'll wait for that Fengjiu to come and die." "Yes," the black-clothed man replied and stood respectfully to the side. "Let's go. There's no need for anyone to stay here anymore. Follow me back to report. I heard that Fengjiu is very powerful. Can we really kill her like this?" The man in black asked doubtfully. "Kill her? Hee. Fengjiu was the reincarnation of the Phoenix Star. How could it be easy to kill her? This time, the higher-ups didn't order us to kill her. We just need to let her have a taste of our power." As the middle-aged man spoke, he narrowed his eyes and led the black-clothed man into the forest. His figure flashed a few times and disappeared into the depths of the forest. In the night, Fengjiu, who was flying on her sword, suddenly felt a cold, murderous aura coming from behind her. She instinctively dodged and saw a cold light flash by. The cold, murderous aura spread across the sky. "Who is it?" she shouted coldly. Her sharp eyes scanned the surroundings with an intimidating aura and finally locked onto a certain spot in the darkness. Within the darkness, a dozen or so black-clothed people faintly appeared. Evil spirit aura surged from their bodies as they silently appeared behind her without a single ripple. "The one who will send you on your way." Chapter 3172. On their bodies, as their auras surged, a dark aura also spread out, turning into ropes that could be seen with the naked eye and wrapped around her limbs. Fengjiu looked at the black aura that wrapped around her limbs and could not help but narrow her eyes. She immediately activated the spiritual aura in her body and mobilized the natal true fire in her body. "Destroy!" As her voice rang out, flames ignited on her body. The scarlet flames rose with a whoosh, incinerating the black chi that had wrapped around her hands and feet. With a flip of her hand, the azure-edged sword that glowed with a green light appeared in her hand. A sharp sword aura shot out, killing the two black-clothed men in front of her with a single strike. "This!" A shrill cry resounded as the two black-clothed figures were slashed into two at the waist. However, their bodies transformed into strands of black smoke that vanished into the heavens and the earth in the next moment. Fengjiu frowned slightly when she witnessed this scene, and she glanced at those people who'd charged over without the slightest hesitation. She knew that these people were death warriors, so she immediately attacked even more fiercely. Her figure flashed across the night sky like a swimming dragon. The sharp green sword in her hand flew out like a flower. Using the strength of a heavenly god and the crushing pressure of a powerful pressure, it did not take long for all the black-clothed men to be killed. She narrowed her eyes as she watched the men in black disappear without leaving behind any corpses. She glanced at the hand holding the green-edged sword. There was a wisp of black aura in the palm of her hand, a tiny speck that had yet to disappear from her flesh. She took out an elixir from the space and consumed it. Gathering her thoughts, she continued to move forward. While flying through the night sky, she kept an eye on the movements below. She only stopped when she saw the few people who had fallen on the ground in the dense forest. Her figure swept down from the sky. When she arrived below, she saw that there was a boundary that trapped them. Immediately, her hands formed a seal in front of her, and spiritual energy surged forward. "Break!" As he shouted, his spirit force surged forward. The flames followed the flow of the boundary and burned upward. In the next moment, there was a bang. The boundary was broken and spirit force rushed out. At this moment, countless arrows shot out from the surroundings. Fengjiu, who was about to move forward, waved her sleeve and blocked all the arrows. After a while, the surroundings seemed to quiet down, and there were no other movements in the dark forest. She glanced at her surroundings and quietly sized them up. After confirming that there were no more ambushes, she walked forward. Du Fan, Fan Lin, Luo Yu. She called out their names, but saw that they were all unconscious. If not for the fact that they still had a trace of life, it would be as if they were dead. Immediately, she took out medicine from a space and prepared to feed them. However, at this moment, a strange blood-red formation appeared around them. This blood-red formation merged with the blood flowing out from their bodies and formed a large formation that emitted a strange blood-red light. The blood-red light soared into the sky, and a powerful spiritual energy spread out. In the night, Fengjiu suddenly stood up in shock. In the next moment, she saw the blood-red light in the formation turn into a sharp and cold sword aura. She immediately waved her sleeve and put the few people on the ground into the space. Hong Long. Bang. Chapter 3173. The blood-red light shot out a dazzling light in the pitch-black sky. A loud rumble resounded in the night like a thunderclap, causing the ground to shake violently. This commotion alarmed the experts in the surrounding towns. While they were shocked, they quickly sent people to find out what was going on. At the same time, in Four Corner City, Elder May, who was guarding the Feng Manor, felt his heart tremble. He looked at the blood-red light soaring into the sky and had a bad feeling in his heart. This movement, could it have something to do with Fengjiu? Leng Hua, Leng Shuang, Hui Lang, and Ing Yi quickly arrived at Elder May's side. Seeing him jump to a high place, they also jumped to his side. Elder May, could this movement have something to do with Master? Leng Hua asked, feeling a bit worried. Master had just left, and something like this had happened in that place. He was afraid. Elder May glanced at them and coughed lightly. You don't need to worry. The young miss is blessed by the heavens. Nothing will happen to her. That blood-red light soaring into the sky shouldn't have anything to do with the young miss. Hearing this, the few of them did not feel relieved. It was because this matter had happened too coincidentally. She had just left a moment ago, and the next moment, something like this had happened in that direction. How could they convince themselves that this matter had nothing to do with her? The Fire Phoenix should be able to sense it, Leng Shuang suddenly said, then turned around and headed towards the back of the mountain. The Fire Phoenix was guarding the cave in the back of the mountain where the Yama Lord was cultivating in seclusion. Now that something like this had happened, it should be able to sense it, as it had a life contract with its master. Hearing this, the others immediately turned around and followed Leng Shuang to the back of the mountain. At this moment, the Yama Lord, who was cultivating in seclusion in the back of the mountain, swallowed the pill and completely absorbed its energy. Just as he was about to take this opportunity to break through to the heavenly god realm, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He quickly stabilized his surging aura, got up, and walked out of the cave. Walking out of the cave, he saw the red light that shot up into the sky. Seeing the Fire Phoenix anxiously walking in front, he immediately asked, "She left?" "Yama Lord." Seeing him come out, the Fire Phoenix hurriedly flapped its wings to greet him. Du Fan and the others have been out on a mission, and we haven't heard from them. Master wanted to go out and take a look, but something happened. I suddenly can't feel Master's breath. I don't know what happened. It had a life contract with its master, so its senses were stronger than others. Now that it couldn't sense its master's aura, it couldn't help but worry. Hearing this, Xin Yuan Mo's frowned slightly and said, "You stay in the mansion. I will go and take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure rose from the ground like an eagle spreading its wings. In an instant, he flew thousands of miles away and disappeared into the night. When Leng Hua and the others arrived, they only saw the Fire Phoenix standing guard. Before they could ask, the Fire Phoenix had already spoken. "Yes, Master. The Yama Lord has already rushed over to take a look." Hearing this, the others didn't say anything else and just went forward to wait. No matter how anxious they were, There was nothing they could do to help. It was better to guard the mansion and prevent their master from worrying. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.